Chapter 668. The next day, the news that someone had infiltrated the Jiang residence and tried to assassinate Jiang Yuqing spread throughout Xiling City. Of course, no one dared to talk about it openly, but they had all kinds of guesses in private. After all, Jiang Yuqing had offended too many people, and there were too many people who wanted his life. It was a long story. In the beginning, he was just an ordinary eldest son of the Jiang family, holding a position in the imperial court that was neither important nor small. Because of his outstanding talent and family background, his future was bright. But in Xiling City, there were many outstanding young disciples. Jiang Yuqing wasn't the most outstanding one in all aspects. The reason why he was able to soar in these few years and reach his current position was all because of his engagement with the Empress concubine. Perhaps because of his outstanding appearance, or perhaps because of his good background and talent, the Empress concubine chose him to be her fiancé. After the engagement was set, his status immediately changed. Who didn't know that the Empress concubine would be the next empress? Moreover, the Empress concubine was born with a Tianjing Yuan meridian. In the hearts of the entire Tianling dynasty, she was the most respected person. In addition, the Empress concubine had done many things over the years, such as quelling rebellions, reducing taxes, and so on. Her reputation was once close to that of the current emperor. In the hearts of the people, she was different. She was a high and mighty existence that they could only look up to. And Jiang Yuqing became the Empress concubine's fiancé, so naturally his status rose. Countless people secretly tried to rope him in and curry favor with him. This allowed Jiang Yuqing to quickly accumulate connections. Later, as his marriage with the Empress concubine gradually progressed, his relationship with the Empress concubine also became closer. He learned a lot by following her. After that, the Empress concubine would give some things to him to handle. He naturally became the person who understood the Empress concubine's style and methods the most. After the Empress concubine passed away, the imperial court was in chaos. He quickly joined forces with the third princess and used thunderous methods to suppress them. At the same time, he eliminated a portion of the people who claimed to have betrayed the Empress concubine. Thus, with the emperor in a coma and the Empress concubine dead, there was no leader. After he and the third princess took care of these matters, they naturally took the position. Later, he and the third princess formed an engagement. Regarding this matter, the world had always had different opinions. Some felt that he was doing this to stabilize the imperial court, while others felt that he was fighting for power. In the process, it was inevitable that he would offend many people. It was actually quite normal for someone to assassinate him now. However, on the same day, another important piece of news came from the palace. In the imperial court, the third princess discussed with all the officials and decided to marry Jiang Yuqing on the 6th of June. Calculating the time, it was about 3 months later. It was like a clap of thunder. Everyone knew that the day of the wedding was the day when third Princess Shangguan ascended the throne. Chu Estate. In the room, Chu Luiyue sat cross-legged, holding his breath and concentrating. The origin power of heaven and earth in the surroundings flowed into her body endlessly, passing through her limbs and bones before finally converging into the water droplet in her dantian. The 4 lines were bright and clear on the surface of the water droplet. Chu Luiyue faintly felt as if he had touched an invisible barrier. She knew very well that it was the threshold of a rank 5 warrior. After the battle at the Square Stream sect meeting, the power in her body had become much more solid. Thinking about it, it was time to choose to break through now. Chu Luiyue placed both hands on her knees and sped up the flow of origin power in her body. Above her head, an energy vortex quickly appeared. Waves of origin power quickly flowed in. The aura and pressure around her also began to rise at a speed visible to the naked eye. Outside the door, Rong Xiu walked along the corridor. Before he reached, he seemed to have sensed something and looked at the room. A faint ripple could be felt coming from it. His eyes moved slightly and he stood still on the spot. With a wave of his sleeve, a silver barrier quickly enveloped the entire room. Master! When Yanqing arrived, he had just shouted when he saw his master standing in the corridor with his hands behind his back, as if waiting for something. He immediately shut up tactfully and looked at the room where Chu Luiyue was. When he saw the silver barrier, he thought for a moment and understood. Master is protecting Miss Luyu? Could it be that Miss Luyu is going to break through again? Yanqing sighed in his heart. Miss Luyu's breakthrough speed was too fast. In less than a year, she went from a good-for-nothing to the peak of rank 4 and was about to break through to rank 5. Even if it was a cultivator with the same Daijing Yuan meridian talent, it would be very difficult to achieve this step. Moreover, she was a triple cultivator. Apart from martial artist cultivation, The ranks of Shen Master and Celestial Physician were also constantly increasing. Even if she was placed in their place, she would not lose to others. Sensing Yanqing's arrival, Rongxiu turned his head and looked over. "What's the matter?" Yanqing stepped forward and bowed. "Master, 36 revered Elder Ming is back. He's waiting in the front hall." Rongxiu raised his eyebrows. "So fast?" At that time, 36 revered Elder Ming had come to Xiling with him. However, after arriving, he asked 36 revered Elder Ming to help investigate a matter. 36 revered Elder Ming was unwilling at first. He wanted to see Chu Luiyue before leaving. In the end, he was persuaded by Rongxiu. According to Rongxiu's previous estimation, 36 revered Elder Ming would only return in half a month. He didn't expect it to be so fast. He turned around and glanced at the silver barrier, but he didn't move. Yanqing hesitated for a moment and asked, "Master, aren't you going now?" Rongxiu was calm. "Wait a little longer." Wait for what? Of course he was waiting for Chu Luiyue to break through. Yanqing was very puzzled. It was naturally a good thing that Miss Lu Yu had broken through to rank 5. However, why did Master still want to guard her personally? At this level there shouldn't be any problems. It should be over soon. However, he didn't dare to say this out loud. He could only say, "Then I'll go back and report to 36 revered elders first." Rongxiu nodded. However, just as Yanqing turned around and was about to leave, he saw a figure walking over from not far away. It was 36 revered Elder Ming. His footsteps seemed slow, but in the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of him silently. Yanqing immediately bowed, but 36 revered Elder Ming waved his hand. "No need, no need. I'm here to see the little princess consort." As he spoke, he looked curiously at Chu Liyue's room and asked in surprise, "Is she going to break through?" "Rongxiu, didn't you say that she's still a rank 4 warrior? Why are you guarding her now?" For convenience, he disguised himself as an elder of Mingyue Tianshan this time. Therefore he no longer addressed Rongxiu as "Your Highness," and called him by his name. Rongxiu seemed to have expected that he couldn't wait to come, and a smile appeared on his face. "Naturally, it's because I need it." Bus. A wave suddenly spread out from the room. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 669. The silver barrier was hit and it rippled slightly. 36 respected Elder Ming was a little surprised. "Is she about to break through to become a rank 5 martial artist?" Rongxiu nodded. 36 respected Elder Ming looked at the surging heaven and earth force and was even more surprised. This movement doesn't seem like it. Rank 5 martial artist? When a cultivator broke through this threshold, it wouldn't cause too much of a commotion. Not to mention them, even the normal cultivators in Xiling City wouldn't pay much attention to it and were all used to it. Rongxiu raised his eyebrows slightly. If her breakthrough was really the same as normal people, why would he do this? 36 respected Elder Ming's heart skipped a beat when he saw Rongxiu's expression. Bus. Another movement came. This time it was even more obvious than the previous one. The heaven and earth force started to surge in at an even faster speed. 36 respected Elder Ming watched for a while and became interested. It seemed like this girl was unusual. He also wanted to see how capable the woman who could make Rongxiu so worried about her was. In the room, Chu Liyue's shoulders drooped slightly. She placed her hands on her knees with her palms facing up. The energy vortex above her head became bigger and bigger, and its spinning speed became faster and faster. Vaguely, Chu Liyue could even hear the sound of surging tides. That was the sound of abundant heaven and earth force surging into her body. Waves of vigorous heaven and earth force swam in her body and kept washing her Yuan meridian before finally pouring into the water droplet. However, even with so much heaven and earth force surging in, the water droplet didn't move for a long time. The invisible barrier was within reach, but when Chu Liyue tried to break through, she realized that the energy required to take this step was much greater than expected. Whoosh, whoosh, heaven and earth force surged inside and outside her body, and even her eardrums seemed to be gurgling. Suddenly, a cluster of bright red flames emerged from her left palm. That flame danced excitedly like a spirit and then started to attract even more heaven and earth force toward her. Chu Liyue's body was like a bottomless pit, crazily devouring the energy of heaven and earth. The scarlet flames refined the energy, and the origin power carried a scorching aura as it poured into his dantian. Half of Chu Liyue's body began to heat up. Shortly after, a strand of origin power floated out from the water droplet. Like smoke, it slowly spread to her internal organs. Chu Liyue's eyebrows twitched slightly. A colorless flame quickly appeared on his right hand. It was the karmic fire in the heavenly square cauldron. At this moment, it was burning quietly and had also begun to compete for the origin power of heaven and earth. He quickly refined it and poured it into Chu Liyue's body. Unlike the origin power that had been tempered by the scarlet flames earlier, the origin power that surged out of the transparent karmic fire actually carried a trace of coldness. Like a stream of icy cold snow, it gradually spread, causing the other half of her body to become cold. However, this cold chi was very different from the cold chi inside Chang Wanzhou's body. Because this kind of cold chi was extremely pure and unadulterated. Very quickly, a strand of origin power with coldness also surged out of the water droplet and similarly spread to her internal organs. Chu Liyue sat there quietly, but there were two extremely different types of energy mixing together in her body. Ice and fire had always been on opposite sides, but Chu Liyue's body was like a huge and incomparably magical container that fused all of these together. Half of her body was burning. Half of her body was icy cold. Within Chu Liyue's body, the two types of burning and chilling feelings were constantly intertwined. And during this process, the origin power consumed by the devouring was extremely terrifying. Outside the door, 36 respected Elder Ming and Yan Qing looked at the energy vortex in the courtyard with a shocked expression. That was formed because Chu Liyue had absorbed too much of the origin power of heaven and earth. Until now, the energy that Chu Liyue had absorbed was already sufficient for 2 peak rank 4 to break through to rank 5. However, she had no intention of stopping. Bus, bus, bus. Ripples of energy spread out. The silver enchantment that Rong Xiu had set up was constantly rippling. If it wasn't for his enchantment, the courtyard would have been swept away by the energy contained in the ripples. 36 respected Elder Ming glanced at Rong Xiu faintly. You guessed it long ago? Rong Xiu smiled but didn't say a word. The commotion caused by this girl breaking through to a rank 5 warrior is really not small. If this continues, she will almost be comparable to a rank 6 warrior. There were a total of 9 ranks for a cultivator and rank 3 was a threshold. For a cultivator to break through the barrier of rank 3, 6, and 9 was extremely important to their entire cultivation career. Chu Liyue this, boom. A roar suddenly came from the room. 36 respected Elder Ming immediately looked over and widened his eyes in shock. She's going to connect the 5 internal organs? The 5 internal organs referred to the heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys. The so-called connecting the 5 internal organs meant that after a cultivator reached a certain level, they could use the Dantian as the center to connect the 5 internal organs and use the origin power of heaven and earth to connect them to the Dantian. In this way, the 5 internal organs that were connected to the Dantian were equivalent to a pill of origin in another sense. The more the 5 internal organs were connected, the faster the cultivator's cultivation speed would increase. But in fact, connecting the 5 internal organs had extremely high requirements for the cultivator. Ordinary cultivators would only attempt this when they were breaking through to a rank 6 warrior. They might not succeed. According to the difference in talent and physique, the number of the 5 internal organs was also different. Some could connect a few at once while some could only connect one. Many cultivators didn't connect all the internal organs even after becoming a rank 7 warrior. But Chu Liyue was just about to break through to a rank 5 warrior, so how could she connect the 5 internal organs? Digression. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 670. Generally speaking, the better one's talent, the earlier one could unlock the 5 treasures, and the higher the chance of success on the first try. But other than Rong Xiu, 36 respected Elder Ming had never seen anyone try this when they broke through to become a stage 5 warrior. This could only prove that Chu Liyue's ability far exceeded her realm. Rong Xiu looked back and looked at the room that was constantly emitting waves. His gaze was deep. Actually, he didn't expect it at first, but when he brought her back yesterday, he was surprised to find the vigorous force in her body. Once she started to break through, it was very likely to cause a huge commotion. The result was indeed so. 36 respected Elder Ming was shocked and didn't say anything for a while. And that silver barrier was shaking even more violently. Chu Liyue had actually expected this scene before she broke through. But when she sensed that the 2 forces of ice and fire were starting to spread toward her internal organs, she was still shocked. In her previous life, she had the Tianjing Yuan Meridian, and indeed, she had already started to unlock the 5 treasures when she broke through to rank 5. But now, her body had the Daijing Yuan Meridian, and logically speaking, she should be like other cultivators starting from the time of rank 6. A thought flashed across Chu Liyue's mind quickly. Perhaps this was related to the water droplet in her body? But this thought only flashed past her mind. She was only stunned for a moment before she quickly gathered her focus and continued to devour the heaven and earth force around her. Chu Liyue closed her eyes and looked inside. In her dantian, the water droplet was spinning slowly. Streams of origin power gushed out from within and spread to his internal organs in an attempt to connect with them. The surroundings were like endless darkness, and she didn't know when she would be able to find the exit. But Chu Liyue was extremely patient and she tried bit by bit. After an unknown period of time, a starlight suddenly appeared in the water droplet. Almost at the same time, a subtle feeling of connection was produced. Her heart was unlocked. Thump thump, thump thump. Her heart was beating vigorously, and even the starlight in the water droplet started to shine. The speed of the force circulation in Chu Liyue's body instantly increased by 2 times. The flames in her hands burned even more fiercely. TSK, she actually did it? Sensing that unusual fluctuation, 36 respected Elder Ming finally could not hold back and spoke out. As a revered elder, he was unquestionably a top-notch cultivator. He had seen tens of thousands of cultivation geniuses. On the surface, 36 respected Old Ming was all smiles, but in reality he was an extremely picky person. It was easy to imagine how high the standards of such a person were. At this moment even he couldn't help but glance at Rong Xiu. No wonder. Brat, your eyesight is quite sharp. Didn't Chu Liyue come from an ordinary family? Didn't they say that she was a good-for-nothing when it came to cultivation? What was going on now? As far as he knew, Rong Xiu had been eyeing the girl ever since she started cultivating. Back then he had thought that since it was rare for Rong Xiu to fall in love with a girl, even if her background and talent were slightly inferior, it wouldn't matter. Who would have thought that after all this time, this brat had brought along a true genius? To think that he had thought so much before. It was simply a waste of emotions. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows, and his lips curled into a smile. Thank you for the compliment. Between his brows, there was a proud look that was not concealed at all. 36 respected Elder Ming, how shameless. Boom. A series of explosions could be heard. She's still continuing? 36 respected Elder Ming was shocked and hurriedly looked over. Could it be that she can still open the second treasury? In the room, Chu Liyue's eyes were tightly shut. After the first success, the subsequent process became much simpler. Very quickly, the second starlight appeared in the water droplet. This time it was the liver. After opening 2 treasures in succession, the force in Chu Liyue's body was still surging crazily, and there was no sign of it stopping. Chu Liyue made up her mind and decided to directly open all 5 treasures in one go. Her entire person seemed to have entered some kind of wonderful state, and she completely forgot about the flow of time in the outside world. She only continued to absorb the energy from the outside world, and then converted it into her own force. Again and again she tried to continue opening the remaining 5 treasures. The water droplet rotated slowly, and the force that surged out also increased. Finally there was a soft sound. Spleen. The third starlight flashed slowly. 36 respected Elder Ming's expression gradually became serious. Such talent was really hard to come by. Generally speaking, it was actually very difficult for a cultivator who tried to open the 5 treasures for the first time to succeed. There were really very few who could open all 3 treasures in one go. And this, to a certain extent, also foretold the cultivator's potential. If Chu Liyue could still continue, boom. As if to confirm his thoughts, there was another boom in the room. A wave that contained powerful energy spread out in all directions. The barrier shook even more violently. This was already the 4th treasury. 36 respected Elder Ming, who originally didn't care about this matter, already had his entire heart in his mouth at this moment. Even Yan Qing's face, which had always been as cold as ice, was now filled with deep shock. Only Rong Xiu had one hand behind his back, and his posture was calm and lazy. It was as if he had already predicted the result. After opening all 4 treasures, 4 starlights shone brightly in the water droplet in her dantian. At this moment, Chu Liyue's speed of absorbing the force had already reached 4 times the initial speed. Fortunately, her yuan meridian was wide and tough enough. Otherwise, it would really be hard for her to withstand such a turbulent force. Waves of force washed through her body. Chu Liyue could clearly feel that the aura on her body was continuously strengthening. Although her eyes were closed, her 5 senses were obviously much sharper than before. Chu Liyue held her breath, and a flash of passion flashed across her heart. If she could open the last treasury, it would be extremely beneficial to her cultivation in the future. So, no matter what, she must succeed. The last treasury was undoubtedly the most crucial and also the most difficult checkpoint. Among 1,000 rank 6 martial artists, there might not even be one who could open all 5 treasures. The difficulty was imaginable. Chu Luiyue tried again and again. The first time didn't work, the second time. The second time didn't work, the third time. After an unknown period of time, there was still no movement from the 5th treasury. The force in Chu Luiyue's body was constantly depleting. But she still didn't stop and she still tried her best every time. She was incomparably stubborn and tenacious. It's been so long, the 5th treasury shouldn't be able to open anymore. Looking at the sky, 36 respected Elder Ming muttered to himself. Actually, it's already very outstanding to be able to open the 4th treasury on the first try. It's fine if you really can't open the 5th treasury. Rong Xiu didn't move at all, as if he was still waiting. After a while, his eyes moved slightly. Boom. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 671. The last treasure was successfully unlocked. The 5th star finally appeared in the water droplet. Almost at the same time, Chu Luiyue heard the sound of something shattering. Bang! That was the barrier of a rank 5 warrior finally breaking. As though the floodgates had been opened, a flood poured down. The wind howled and countless waves were swept up. Chu Luiyue retracted her hands and the 2 balls of flames quickly returned to her body. A powerful aura spread out from Chu Luiyue's body. The 5th pattern gradually appeared on the water droplet. Buzz! Chu Luiyue suddenly opened her eyes. There seemed to be 2 balls of flames burning in her eyes. It was extremely bright and brilliant. A true rank 5 warrior. She stretched out her hand and drew a line of origin power. 5 stars were faintly discernible in her palm. Even that force was wrapped in an unusually powerful aura. This level of strength was more than a few times stronger than before. This was the strength of a rank 5 warrior who had unlocked all 5 treasures. Even someone as calm and collected as Chu Luiyue couldn't help but feel agitated at this moment. She had never thought that not only could she be reborn as a human, but she could also cultivate to such a level again. Although there was no way to be compared to her previous self, Chu Luiyue could clearly feel that as her strength increased, she was indeed getting closer to her previous self step by step. There would be a day when she would return to her peak. She would take back everything that belonged to her. When the fluctuations around her gradually dissipated, Chu Luiyue took a deep breath and calmed herself down. She stood up and walked outside. The door opened and a few gazes looked over. Chu Luiyue followed the gaze and looked over. The first to see was Rong Xiu. Standing behind him was Yan Qing. Beside him was a green-robed old man with white hair who was looking at her with a smile. This is, Chu Luiyue was puzzled. Rong Xiu waved his sleeves and the silver barrier disappeared silently. Only then did Chu Luiyue realize that he seemed to have set up a barrier outside the room. Is he protecting me? Well, she had caused quite a commotion just now and it would be troublesome if she attracted someone. She had been in the limelight in West Hill recently and there were many pairs of eyes looking at her. Although she wasn't afraid, she knew that it was easier to dodge an open spear than an arrow in the dark. It was always better to be careful. Moreover, she had unlocked all 5 treasures as a rank 5 warrior. If this news were to spread, it would probably cause a bloodbath. Thinking of this, a smile appeared on her face. Just as she was about to walk forward, she saw that the old man had already taken a step forward. Little Wang. Little Luyu, right? Although the old man's face was full of wrinkles, his eyes were very clear and he looked hale and hearty. When he walked over, it seemed like he hadn't moved at all, but in the next moment he was already right before Zhang Xian. Moreover, there was not the slightest bit of power. Chu Liyue's heart tingled. This old man's strength was probably far beyond her expectations. At this moment he was looking at Chu Liyue with a smile and a curious and eager face. Chu Liyue glanced at Rong Xiu and saw that he was smiling. It was obvious that he had a good relationship with this old man, so she smiled obediently and bowed. Luyu greets Senior. 36 respected Elder Ming looked at the little girl in front of him happily. Her face was porcelain white and her eyes were clean. There was a hint of nobility in her eyes. She was really likable. Not bad, not bad. Rong Xiu's taste was indeed good. He liked her the moment he saw her. You don't have to be so polite. This old man's title in Mingyue Tianshan is 36 Ming. You can call me 36 respected Elder. So he was an elder from Mingyue Tianshan. Chu Liyue understood and immediately responded obediently. 36 respected elder came to West Hill this time because he has something important to do. He also came here to take a look. Rong Xiu walked over and explained. Chu Liwen nodded and said apologetically, 36 respected elder came from afar. 36th elder, you've come from afar. Please forgive me for not being able to receive you properly. No. This old man knows that you were cultivating just now. This old man has always been free to come and go. I don't care about these formalities. Besides, Rong Xiu is here. It's more important for you to break through. As he spoke, a trace of admiration appeared in his eyes. Little Luyu, your talent is really outstanding. It seemed like he already knew about what had happened just now. Chu Liyue's mind raced. It was hard not to know that an expert of this level was standing here. Moreover, Rong Xiu seemed to have a good relationship with this old man and should be very trusting. In that case, she had nothing to hide. Thank you for your praise, 36 respected elder. Actually, Luyu was just a little lucky. 36 respected elder Ming chuckled. There are people in this world who can't do this even if they use up their lifetime of luck. Little Luyu, you don't have to be humble. It's Rong Xiu's fortune to be able to find you. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly. It seems like someone has suddenly changed sides? Chu Liyue's face turned slightly hot. This was the first time she had heard such words from an outsider. It felt really strange. 36 respected elder Ming no longer had Rong Xiu in his eyes. He only had Chu Liyue left. He had never married in his life and had no children. In the past, he had always treated Rong Xiu as his close relative. Not only did he teach him everything, but he also often gave advice to Rong Xiu. It could be said that without him, there wouldn't be Rong Xiu who sat firmly on the position of Holy Son today. But there was one thing. He had great expectations for Rong Xiu and was relatively strict. But when he saw Chu Liyue, his heart instantly melted. Such a cute and beautiful little girl, isn't she meant to be pampered? Little Luyu, you're now a rank 5 warrior and have opened your 5 treasures. It's time for you to build a good cultivation foundation and stabilize your advancement. I happen to have some Earth stage martial skills, why don't you pick them? With that, 36 respected elder Ming shook his hand. Crash. Many jade boxes instantly fell out of the universe ring. Those jade boxes were all lustrous and translucent with a faint aura. It was obvious that the items inside were not ordinary. He coughed. Old man, things are a bit messy. You can put up with it and pick whatever you like. If you don't like it, I still have more. Chu Liyue's eyes were dazed for a moment. What does this mean? There's actually someone in this world who casually gives an Earth stage martial skill on their first meeting? However, seeing Chu Liyue's expression, 36 respected elder Ming misunderstood and thought that she didn't like them. He pondered for a moment, pulled Chu Liyue's wrist and walked to the side. He lowered his voice and whispered, Little Luyu, if you don't like these, then I actually have better things. However, those are all the sect's inheritances. I'm afraid I can only give them to you after you and Rong Xiu get married. Chu Liyue's brows twitched violently. Does he mean, marry Rong Xiu and give her a heaven stage martial skill? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 672. Rong Xiu, who felt as if he had been sold, was speechless. Facing the extremely enthusiastic 36 respected elder Ming, Chu Liyue was unable to withstand it. She coughed and said, Thank you, 36th elder Ming. I appreciate your kind intentions, but this gift is really too precious. Choose one. Choose one. 36 revered elder Ming urged. How can this little thing be considered valuable? I'll give you something better in the future. Chu Liyue was speechless. Little thing, was he talking about these Earth rank martial skills? Were all the top-notch experts now so generous? Chu Liyue still wanted to decline, but Rong Xiu had already walked forward. His gaze swept across the boxes and he picked one and handed it to Chu Liyue. This is 36 elder Ming's kind intentions. Just accept it. Otherwise, according to his character, he might really pester Chu Liyue for half a month because of this matter. Chu Liyue hesitated for a moment and could only accept the jade box. Thank you, 36 elder Ming. 36 respected elder Ming's eyes lit up when he saw the box. He looked at Rong Xiu and chuckled. You sure know how to pick. This old man wants to give something to little Luyu, and you didn't forget to interfere? Chu Liyue looked at the two of them in confusion. Rong Xiu smiled faintly. It's just in passing. As he spoke, he also took out another identical box from his universe ring and handed it to Chu Liyue. 36 elder Ming gave you the first volume and this is the second volume. Chu Liyue was somewhat puzzled. Why was there a need to divide a martial skill into 2 volumes? Suddenly she widened her eyes slightly. Wait a minute, if the first volume was an Earth-rank martial skill, then wouldn't the second volume be a Heaven-rank martial skill? Rong Xiu, this second volume? Rong Xiu seemed to have seen through her guess and his lips curled up slightly. You are this prince's fiancé. 36 Revered Elder Ming is temporarily unable to give you this item, but this prince can. As expected, Chu Luiwei immediately confirmed his guess. With the first and second volumes added together, it was definitely a Heaven-tier martial skill. And what did Rong Xiu just say? Just in passing? 36 Revered Elder Ming said sourly, You only know how to bully me. When you get married, this old man will give you whatever I want. How could it be your turn? Chu Luiwei was speechless. Is this something to be proud of? The vast majority of cultivators in this world might not even be able to see a Heaven-ranked martial skill in their entire lives, but they had actually given it away so casually, and she had just broken through to become a rank 5 warrior, yet she had received such a precious gift out of the blue? Chu Luiwei looked at Rong Xiu meaningfully. She was now extremely sure that the Honorable Prince Li, oh no, His Highness Saint was indeed from a wealthy family. Hugging 2 heavy boxes in her arms, Chu Luiwei silently thought to herself, so this is the feeling of hugging someone's thigh. Awesome. Oh, that's right. I heard from Rong Xiu that you, little Luyu, are also a Shen master and celestial physician? Although this old man doesn't cultivate these 2, I have collected quite a number of things. As 36 Revered Elder Ming spoke, he poured out another pile of things and started picking. This is a level 8 Shen formation, this is for you. And this is for you too. This seems to be a prescription book. Back then this old man picked it up from a 9. Celestial physician, take it. Chu Luiwei, who was still pretending to be calm at the beginning, finally felt her eyelids twitch violently. Isn't this too extravagant? 36 Revered Elder Ming, these things of yours are really too valuable. However, Rong Xiu had already taken those things and placed them in her arms, not allowing her to reject. 36 Revered Elder does indeed have quite a number of things that are idle. It's a waste to leave them with him. You're just making the best use of them by accepting them. Just take them, Rong Xiu said casually. As he spoke, he glanced at those things a few times as if he was picking something. 36 Revered Elder Ming, I remember that you have a yuan instrument that can teleport? Yes, that's good too. 36 Revered Elder Ming searched again. After a while, he took out a palm-sized bronze disc and stuffed it into Chu Liyue's hands. Little Luyu, you've just reached the standard of flying. This is the most suitable thing for you to use. Chu Liyue was dumbfounded. At the beginning she tried to dissuade them, but after realizing that she couldn't stop these 2 people at all, she decisively gave up. How should she put it? This feeling of being thrown money at, it still felt good. 36 Respected Elder Ming only stopped when Chu Liyue's entire body was about to be buried by these gifts after half a day of digging. He sized up Chu Liyue and shook his head regretfully. I'm still lacking. Rong Xiu, you have to hurry up and get married. Otherwise I can't give you a lot of things. Only when Chu Liyue became Rong Xiu's princess consort and reached this level of relationship could he continue. Rong Xiu's lips curled up slightly. I'll try my best. Chu Liyue was speechless. What does this mean? Why does it feel like something isn't right? After Rong Xiu finished speaking, he glanced at her and smiled. Keep these first. There's something that you probably don't know yet. Let's go inside and talk. Faced with such a forceful gift, Chu Liyue felt weak, pitiful and helpless. She could only obediently put everything into her universe ring. Although the universe ring wasn't heavy, for some reason, Chu Liyue felt that if she shook it, she would hear countless money rustling. Come to think of it, although I didn't have anything when I was reborn, my luck seems to be ridiculously good. After packing up, the few of them finally entered the house. Chu Liyue personally brewed tea and received another round of praise from 36 Revered Elder Ming. Little Luyu, the tea you brewed is really good. Chu Liyue asked curiously. Do you like Jin Junmei? 36 Revered Elder Ming was stunned for a moment before he immediately nodded. Rong Xiu sat at the side and watched this scene with a faint smile. Who didn't know that 36 Revered Elder Ming only drank the ice and snow water that he carried with him? Especially at his level, he didn't care about these things. Although his acting skills were clumsy, he was sincere. Chu Liyue could roughly tell what was going on and she found it funny and warm. She could tell that he really liked her and valued her. All of this was because he cared about Rong Xiu. Although she had never heard Rong Xiu mention it before, this old man was extremely important to Rong Xiu. There's a piece of news from the palace today. Rong Xiu took a sip of tea, and the fragrance instantly spread between his lips and teeth. The wedding between the third princess and young Master Jiang is set for the 6th of June. Chu Luiyue was stunned. This is... Shang Wanwan finally can't hold it in anymore. Is she going to ascend the throne? While she was in a daze, she realized that Rong Xiu was looking at her with a deep gaze. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. He seems to care a lot about my reaction? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 673. Actually, this matter was within her expectations. She was even a little surprised that the two of them had only decided on a date now. After all, the two of them had seemed so affectionate on the night of her death. She had thought that after her death, the two of them would be in power and could find a random reason to quickly get married. The two of them were irreconcilable enemies to her. Apart from that, sisters, fiancé and fiancée, those had long disappeared. Therefore, when she heard this news, she was not surprised at all. She even wanted to laugh. Two people whose bodies were severely injured, getting married at this time was simply asking for a snub. 6th of June. Calculating the time, there were only about 3 months left. Actually, this was not a long time. Apart from the wedding, there would definitely be a coronation ceremony. There were many things that would take a lot of time and energy to prepare. She just did not know why the two of them chose this time. Besides, even if they really got married, not to mention Jiang Yuqing Shang Wanwan, how could a piece of trash with a damaged Yuan meridian pick up the Tianling scepter? It was fine if she used special methods on normal days, but on the day of the wedding, if she could not pick up the Tianling scepter in front of all the officials, the scene would definitely be beautiful. Thinking of this, Chu Luiyue was actually a little excited. TSK. Her bad habit of being a busybody was getting worse. Seeing Chu Luiyue's expression change and a sly smile in the end, Rong Xiu's eyes flashed and his smile deepened. He leaned back in his chair lazily. It seemed that some of his worries were indeed unnecessary. Pretty good. Chu Luiyue smiled. The emperor of the Tianling dynasty has been in a coma for 2 years and has been without a leader. Now it is time to solve this problem. However, whether it can really be solved is another matter. Since Shang Wanwan dared to do this, she must be prepared. As expected, she heard Rong Xiu continue. Also, there is one more thing. The third princess said that the emperor had been in a coma for a long time, and they needed to find several special herbs and the blood of divine beasts to wake him up. For this reason, she planned to personally head to the Great Desolate Swamp. Chu Luiyue was really surprised this time. Great Desolate Swamp? That place was at the western border of the Tianling dynasty. It was extremely remote and the environment was harsh. Why would Shang Wanwan want to go there in person? Back then, Mu Qinghe had joined the Black Cavalry and fought for many years in the Great Desolate Swamp. In the end, she had quelled the rebellion with great difficulty, which was why she had her current status. It was easy to imagine the dangers involved. Chu Luiyue had been to the Great Desolate Swamp in his previous life. Although it wasn't as mysterious and dangerous as the southern border, the Great Desolate Swamp was still a dangerous place compared to other places. Mystic Forest, Mirror Lake, Red Moon Desert. Back then, even she had been in danger several times. In Shang Wanwan's current situation, she still dared to take such a risk? Chu Luiyue thought for a moment. She brought the elders of the royal family with her? There's also 1,000 Black Cavalry. If the rumors aren't wrong, Mu Qinghe will be leading the team. Rong Xiu touched the teacup with a calm expression. In addition, she also plans to send 10 people from each of the 8 sects in the sect competition. She said, to provide opportunities for training. I heard that she will be selecting people from today onwards. We will set off 3 days later. Chu Luiyue almost laughed out loud. Provide opportunities for training? Shang Wanwan could actually say such things. How dangerous was the Great Desolate Swamp? More or less, there was no return. It was understandable that she brought the elders of the royal family and the Black Cavalry, but she still wanted to select people from the 4 major sects. She obviously had other motives. This is the royal family's matter. Did she say that the 4 major sects agreed so easily? This wasn't what she said. It was Purple Shao Sword Sect Master Song Luan who suggested it. It seems that some outstanding descendants of aristocratic families can go together if they want to. Now the news has spread throughout the entire West Hill. How preposterous. Ridiculous. Chu Luiyue didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Why are they so passionate about the Great Desolate Swamp? Isn't that place very dangerous? It's dangerous, but there might be countless treasures hidden there. People die for wealth and birds die for food. It has been like this since ancient times. Rong Xiu said lightly as if he didn't care. Chu Luiyue was speechless for a moment. All along, the great desolate swamp had always been mysterious and dangerous in the eyes of the world, but it was also full of temptation. Because thousands of years ago, a shocking battle had once erupted there. It was rumored that in that battle, countless strong people killed each other, and they all fell in the end. The various treasures and inheritances that they left behind had undoubtedly become things that everyone yearned for even in their dreams. Therefore, for many years, there had always been an endless stream of people entering the great desolate swamp. Back then, it was also because someone found an incredible item in the great desolate swamp and gathered a group of extremely vicious people who wanted to start anew in the great desolate swamp. In the end, they were forcefully suppressed. That group of people who rebelled had all disappeared, but it was precisely because of them that countless people realized how powerful the countless treasures hidden in the great desolate swamp were. Therefore, from then on, even more people went there. In addition, there was an even more important point: divine beasts. There hadn't been a divine beast in the Tianling dynasty for hundreds of years. Even the former Shangguanyu had only contracted a 9th-grade magical beast, not a divine beast. No one knew when it started, but there was suddenly a rumor that a divine beast appeared in the great desolate swamp. In this world where the strong were respected, all these factors had a fatal attraction to all cultivators. Therefore, after Shangguan mentioned this matter, many people immediately expressed their desire to go with her. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment. That's true. Rong Xiu looked at her. Then, do you plan to go? Chu Luiyue was a disciple of the Chongshu Pavilion, so she naturally had a chance. Moreover, she had just won 3 matches, turned the tide, and preserved the Chongshu Pavilion's position as one of the 4 major sections. She would definitely be the focus of attention. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment. Go. Why not? It wasn't like she hadn't been there before. Moreover, she also wanted to see what tricks Shangguan had up her sleeves. Suddenly, she frowned slightly. But, if I go, what about you? Rong Xiu smiled faintly. I'm leaving tomorrow, 1 step earlier than you. Chu Luiyue was a little surprised, and a sense of loss suddenly surged in her heart. So soon? I've been resting here for a long time and it's time to go. Chu Luiyue realized that Rong Xiu had indeed stayed in West Hill for more than a month. It was just that she had been busy with many things, and the two of them didn't have much chance to be alone. Chu Luiyue fell silent for a moment. Rong Xiu glanced at Yan Qing indifferently. Yan Qing immediately understood what he meant. Master, I suddenly remembered that there are still some things I haven't done, so I'll take my leave first. Rong Xiu nodded slightly. Yan Qing slipped away. Rong Xiu looked at 36 respected Elder Ming again. However, 36 respected Elder Ming was looking at Chu Luiyue, and he asked with a worried and eager expression. But, little Luyu, the place you mentioned is so dangerous. Do you want me to go with you? Digression. At about 12:30 p.m., mobile phone users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 674. Rong Xiu, 36 respected Elder Ming, you seem to have said something wrong? This is your first time meeting you, or is it appropriate for you to speak like this? As if Rong Xiu's gaze was too cold and resentful, the slow-witted 36 respected Elder Ming finally realized something and quickly turned his head to look at him. Hey look, Rong Xiu is also very worried. I feel more at ease accompanying you. Rong Xiu? He suddenly rejoiced that he didn't let 36 respected Elder Ming meet Chu Luiyue in the past month. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had a good time during this period of time. Chu Luiyue smiled helplessly. 36 respected Elder Ming, I'm afraid this won't work. Shangguan had caused quite a commotion this time, and it was obvious that she was very strict in selecting people. Each of the 8 sects would send out 10 people. Those who didn't know the inside story would probably think that this was an excellent opportunity and would fight until their heads bled. With such strict control over these sects, people like 36 respected Elder Ming would definitely not be allowed to go together. Hearing this, 36 respected Elder Ming's face was filled with disappointment. He originally wanted to follow and protect little Luyu. But don't worry, I will be very careful and pay attention to safety. Chu Luiyue said again. Sigh, all right. 36 respected Elder Ming let out a long sigh and began to take things out from his universe ring. If that's the case, then I can't help you with anything else. I can only give you some things to protect yourself. Here, this and this. And this. Take them all. As he spoke, he handed over another pile of things. Chu Luiyue, it was really hard to guess how many treasures there were in the big boss's universe ring. I mustn't disappoint 36 respected Elder Ming's kind intentions. Rong Xiu raised his finger and moved all those things to Chu Liyue's feet. Then he took out another pile and similarly piled them in front of Chu Liyue. I'm giving these to you. Chu Liyue. Why did he inexplicably smell a faint murderous aura? Chu Liyue felt really embarrassed and tried to stop him again and again. Hence, he successfully kept all these things into his universe ring. The three of them were happy. Chu Liyue was busy receiving gifts, but he didn't know that Shilin City was already in an uproar because of these two matters. The third princess and young Master Zhang's wedding. To His Majesty, to His Majesties, His Majesties, to the disciples of the major sects were all extremely excited. That was the great desolate swamp. Although there were countless treasures. If he could find some kind of treasure or even obtain the inheritance of a certain expert, that would be a great opportunity. All the cultivators in the world wished to become stronger. Therefore, even if they knew that the great desolate swamp was dangerous, it still couldn't stop them from wanting to go. For this reason, the major sects had already begun to consider candidates. Mountain. I'm not going. Jian Fengqi crossed his legs and waved his bone fan. He looked lazy and indifferent. That's a barren land. Whoever wants to go can go. Jian Shai looked at him disapprovingly. What barren land? That's a place where divine beasts have appeared. Let's not talk about whether the rumor is true or not. Even if it's true, do you think I'll have a chance to get that divine beast? Jian Fengqi sneered. If only divine beasts were so easy to tame. Jian Shai also knew that what he said made sense, so he didn't argue with him. Even if you can't find a divine beast, it's good to go and experience it. You grew up in Shilin and almost never went outside. Now that this is a rare opportunity, you can go out and see. Moreover, the third princess is going to look for herbs for His Majesty. You're not interested in divine beasts, but there should be herbs, right? Jian Fengqi glanced at his father. Father, I'm fine in Shilin. Why do you insist on me going out? Even if I didn't experience those things, aren't I still fine now? I'm a celestial physician, and you're also a celestial physician. Why are you still forcing me to fight with a group of martial artists and Shen masters? Jian Shai really didn't know what to do with this son of his. He only cared about himself all day long and wanted the best for everything. He wasn't willing to suffer at all. Jian Fengqi glanced at him and continued. Besides, Mu Qinghe used to rise from that place. Is there anyone who knows Da Huang Swamp better than him? It's enough for him to go on this trip. There are so many other people going, but they're just joining in the fun. However, he didn't like it. Sheng Wanwan was there, and he was really afraid that she would ruin his mood. Besides, Sheng Wanwan's words were just used to scare people. Only she knew what she really wanted to do. He might as well stay in Shilin and do what he should do. Seeing that he really couldn't persuade him, Jian Shai could only give up. Master, can I go? Mu Hongyu suddenly asked. Jian Shai was stunned and immediately nodded. Of course. Although there were only 10 places, Mu Hongyu had the incorporeal body. In addition, she had improved rapidly during this period. Of course, she could go if she wanted to. Mu Hongyu's eyes lit up. That's great. Thank you, Master. That place sounds very interesting. And if I'm not wrong, Liu will definitely go too. Jian Fengqi frowned slightly and was about to stop her, but he swallowed his words when he saw Mu Hongyu's excited expression. Jian Shai shook his head at Jian Fengqi. Since you don't want to go, then it's up to you. Many disciples on the mountain want to go. Jian Fengqi was unmoved. He stood up, stretched, and walked out leisurely. When he passed by Mu Hongyu, he knocked Mu Hongyu's head with his bone fan and whispered, "You really don't know the difference between life and death." Mu Hongyu blinked and wrinkled her nose. Who was reckless? Just as she was about to retort, Jian Fengqi had already walked away. Imperial Palace, Huayang Hall. Sheng Wanwan sat there thinking about something. Chani was packing her things. They would set off for the Da Huang Swamp in 3 days. This time it would probably take more than a month. Therefore she had to bring a lot of things. The Da Huang Swamp was a dangerous place. If it was in the past, Sheng Wanwan would still have the courage to go. But now, her body, she felt more or less uneasy. Fortunately, she had brought a lot of people this time. Your Highness, Your Highness? Chani called out to her twice before Sheng Wanwan came back to her senses. What's wrong? Chani looked at her expression and asked hesitantly. Is the third princess worried about something? With Vice Admiral Mu leading the team this time, there shouldn't be a problem. Him? Sheng Wanwan scoffed. He won't listen to me. Although she knew that Mu Qinghe was Jiang Yuqing's subordinate, perhaps because he had been by Sheng Wanyu's side for so many years, she couldn't trust him. If it weren't for the fact that they were going to the Dahuang swamp and Mu Qinghe was the most suitable, she wouldn't have brought him along. Your Highness, you're worrying too much. Isn't young Master Jiang accompanying us? If you're really worried, why don't you bring that thing along? Shang Wanwan turned around. What? Chani bowed and whispered, have you forgotten that that person left behind a set of armor? Digression. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 675. Are you talking about the pure gold armor? Shang Wanwan furrowed her eyebrows. That item is not bad, but it has always been in Xiaoyu Hall. Everyone in the Tianling dynasty knows that it belongs to Shang Guanyu. If I take it out, that person has already passed away. It's a waste for the holy item to be left in the pavilion. If it can be used by your Highness and protect your Highness, it will be the best use. Chani didn't seem to mind. She advised, you are already above everyone, and you will be getting married in a few months' time. No one is more suitable than you to be the new owner of this pure gold armor. Shang Wanwan was moved by her words. The origin of this pure gold saint armor had quite a long history. Back then, when Shang Guanyu had just become of marriageable age, she had led the Black Cavalry to patrol the territory. Along the way, she had accidentally entered the ruins of an ancient battlefield and obtained the pure gold armor. She had only publicly worn it once, and that was during the final battle in Dahuang Swamp. It was rumored that she had worn the pure gold armor and fought against 3 rank 8 martial artists alone. She had even killed all of them in the end. From then on, the pure gold armor had become famous. Shang Guanyu was the heavenly princess and had seen many good items. However, this pure gold armor was definitely one of the top 3 yuan tools that she had. It was obvious how powerful it was. Shang Guanwan had naturally been moved by this item. She had even thought of taking the pure gold armor for herself after dealing with Shang Guanyu. However, her yuan meridian had been burned and hadn't recovered. Thus, she had thrown this matter to the back of her mind. Now that Chani mentioned it, she suddenly recalled it. What you said makes sense. Shang Wanwan narrowed her eyes and thought about it. Let's go now. Xiaoyu Hall. This used to be the most honorable place in the entire palace, other than the Universal Palace where the current emperor lived. This was because this used to be the residence of the heavenly princess. The bustling of the past had all disappeared. The current Xiaoyu Hall had become very lonely and cold. Other than the palace guards who were sent to guard the palace, almost no one would come here. Because the empress concubine died from qi deviation during cultivation, it wasn't very pleasant to hear. In addition, the one in power now was the 3rd princess, so people rarely talked about the past. In this palace, it was true that each new emperor brought in his own ministers. In the eyes of the world, the 3rd princess and the empress concubine were extremely close and had a very good relationship. However, the palace servants who had been in the palace for a long time all had a keen mind. They more or less understood the subtleties involved. Therefore, when Shang Guanwan arrived, the palace servants of Xiaoyu Hall were very shocked. Long live the 3rd princess. Shang Guanwan waved her hand casually and stepped into the courtyard, heading straight for the sleeping quarters. I'm just looking around. Do whatever you need to do. After everyone agreed in unison, they waited for Shang Guanwan to enter the bedchamber. Then they exchanged glances and slowly dispersed. Ever since Her Highness the Empress concubine left, the 3rd princess came a few times. She always came with red eyes and left with red eyes. He didn't come much this year. Today's visit was really inexplicable. But no matter what, they still had to serve her carefully. Shang Guanwan walked into the bedchamber. This room clearly hadn't been visited by anyone for a long time. The air was filled with a faint smell of dust that had been sealed for a long time. When the sunlight shone in, one could see the dust dancing in the air. Shang Guanwan frowned and used a handkerchief to cover her mouth and nose. She was angry and amused at the same time. Who would have thought that the once glorious Xiaoyu Hall would fall to such a state one day? If it was a normal day, she would definitely immediately go out and admonish her to show her deep sisterly love. But today she really wasn't in the mood and couldn't be bothered to do it. She walked to the bedside and gently rubbed the edge of the bed. After touching a protrusion, she pressed with her finger and the sandalwood cabinet diagonally opposite quietly moved aside. A secret compartment appeared in front of her. Shang Guanwan walked over and knocked on it a few times. Click. The secret compartment opened. A pure golden armor was placed in the middle of it. Even in this dark space, this pure gold armor still emitted a faint glow that couldn't be ignored. From top to bottom, it emitted an indescribable noble and lofty aura. At a glance, one could almost feel the surging blood qi on the armor. This wasn't the first time Shang Wanwan saw this pure gold armor. But every time she saw it, her heart would be shocked. It was a true sacred object passed down from the ancient times. It was an incomparable existence that could be called a divine artifact. Shang Wanwan was excited and couldn't help but reach out her hand to touch it slowly. It was cold and hard to the touch, but it emitted a powerful pressure. If she really wore it, what would it look like? Shang Wanwan took a deep breath and carefully took off the pure gold armor. She held it in her arms and felt it against her face for a while. This was a powerful aura. This armor recognized its owner. Unfortunately, her Yuan meridian was damaged and she could only look at it. When her body recovers, all of these would be hers. Shang Wanwan carefully put the pure gold armor into her universe ring. Then she restored everything to its original state before leaving. Chani was waiting at the door. As Shang Wanwan walked out, she said indifferently, "Long Tianyu hasn't been cleaned up. Eldest sister's palace hasn't been cleaned for a long time. The palace servants of Zhao Yu Hall have neglected their duties and have all been chased out of the palace." Chani bowed. "Yes. Jiang residence. Eldest young master, you can't go with the third princess this time. If this continues, I'm afraid your body will." Feng Shanyuan came to the study again and tried his best to dissuade him. Jiang Yuqing sat in the chair expressionlessly. "You don't have to say this anymore. I must go this time." He wasn't going because of anything else but because he was worried about Shang Wanwan. Shang Wanwan wanted to recover her Yuan meridian as soon as possible, and he agreed. However, he didn't expect her to do this the moment she made a move. Not only did she bring the royal family's elders and 1,000 black cavalry, but the other sects also sent 10 disciples each. What was going on? Others didn't know, but he knew best. Shang Wanwan was being too hasty. Feng Shanyuan frowned. "But if you and the third princess go to Dahuang Swamp, what will happen to West Hill? Leave it to the subordinates to deal with. Now that most of the problems have been resolved, nothing will happen in a short month." Jiang Yuqing didn't think much of it. For the past 2 years he had been upholding the principle of those who followed him would prosper and those who opposed him would die. He killed those who should be killed and captured those who should be captured. He had already dealt with those who posed a threat to him. He wasn't worried about what the remaining shrimp soldiers and crab generals would do. "But there's still His Majesty. It's precisely because I want to find out the problem that I want to leave West Hill," Jiang Yuqing said meaningfully. Feng Shanyuan didn't say anything else. "Do. Eldest young master Vice Admiral Mu requests an audience. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network." Chapter 676. Jiang Yuqing glanced at Feng Shanyuan, and the latter immediately took his leave. Then Mu Qinghe walked in. Jiang Yuqing leaned back in his chair. "Tell me what's the matter?" Mu Qinghe cupped his fists. "Young master, I've been secretly investigating the 100 Herbs building recently, but they're very guarded, so it's difficult to find anything. However, I accidentally learned that Yu Ling is in charge of the 100 Herbs building on the surface, but in fact there's a first master behind him. That's the real master of the 100 Herbs building." "First master?" Jiang Yuqing frowned. "Who is this person?" He only knew that there must be someone behind the 100 Herbs building, but he didn't know who it was. Moreover, because the 100 Herbs building had been doing business quietly in the past and did not involve his interests, he did not seriously send people to investigate. Mu Qinghe shook his head. "This person is very mysterious and there's no clue. But I heard that this first master has a wife and he loves her very much. But there's nothing else. First master, wife, these were all hearsay." When he really wanted to investigate, Mu Qinghe found that the other party was more powerful than he had imagined, and everything was done flawlessly. This made him even more helpless. If Chu Luiyue really has a backer in the 100 Herbs building, it's very likely to be this person. Otherwise, there's really no way to explain what happened recently. Chu Luiyue comes from an ordinary family and has never even been to West Hill. How could she know such a person? Jiang Yuqing was a little skeptical. Mu Qinghe lowered his head slightly. It's said that the last time Chu Luiyue went to the 100 Herbs building, Yu Ling was very polite to her and even entertained her personally. There are probably less than 5 people in West Hill who have such treatment. Jiang Yuqing's expression changed slightly. In that case it's possible. Can't you find out anything about the so-called First Master? For example, is he from West Hill? Or perhaps it's age. Mu Qinghe shook her head, then said with some hesitation, "That's right. Eldest young master, we've been secretly investigating them, but we've already been discovered. And they even gave me a warning. Jiang Yuqing's eyes suddenly turned sharp. What? Mu Qinghe opened her palm. There was a neat bloody wound on it as if it was going to be cut in half from the middle. The other party's meaning was very clear. Don't stretch your hands too far. They fought with you? Jiang Yuqing asked coldly. It's a masked man. His strength is not inferior to mine. In fact, what Mu Qinghe wanted to say was that the other party's strength was most likely higher than his. Otherwise, it would not have been so easy to leave such a wound on his palm. Jiang Yuqing was silent for a long time, as if he was holding a breath in his chest. In these 2 years he had never seen such an arrogant person. However, he didn't even know who this person was. Whether it was Jiang Yuji or Mu Qinghe, the other party had made it clear that they were unyielding. According to Jiang Yuqing's personality, he would never allow others to bully him. Furthermore, this was West Hill, this was his territory. However, at this time, it was not appropriate to cause more trouble. He stared at the wound on Mu Qinghe's palm, rubbed his brows and let out a long breath. Forget it, this matter ends here. We'll be going to Dahuang Swamp in a few days. Let's settle these things first. Mu Qinghe had already expected this result and nodded without surprise. Yes. Jiang Yuqing had been troubled by a bunch of trivial matters recently. He couldn't even take care of himself, so how could he care about these things? He could only wait until he returned. If there's nothing else, eldest young master, then I'll take my leave first. Jiang Yuqing waved his hand. Mu Qinghe retreated. However, she had just taken 2 steps when she was stopped by Jiang Yuqing. By the way, that day, were you the one who called the carriage for Rongxiu? Mu Qinghe was a little surprised that Jiang Yuqing actually knew about Rongxiu, but she still nodded. Yes. Jiang Yuqing's expression was a little cold, as if he was thinking about something. After a moment he asked again. That Rongxiu, what kind of person is he? Mu Qinghe was even more shocked. Why was Jiang Yuqing suddenly curious about Rongxiu? There were so many things to deal with right now, but he was actually wasting time and energy on such an unrelated person. Mu Qinghe suppressed the doubts in her heart and briefly told him about Rongxiu's situation. He didn't know much about Rongxiu, so he finished with a few words. As Jiang Yuqing spoke, he looked at Jiang Yuqing's expression. That's about it. Does eldest young master suspect that there's something wrong with him? Jiang Yuqing's lips moved, but in the end he didn't say anything. He just shook his head and let Mu Qinghe leave. After Mu Qinghe left and closed the door, Jiang Yuqing closed his eyes in annoyance. How could he think about these things at this time? On the one hand, the person who wanted to assassinate him hadn't been found yet. On the other hand, who was the first master behind 100 Herbs building? He didn't know whether it would be good or bad for him. Most importantly, he was about to go to Dahuang Swamp. He had to adjust his physical condition as soon as possible and prevent anything from happening to Shangguan. He really shouldn't spend time and energy asking these questions. But, for some reason, the scene of that day kept appearing in his mind from time to time. The heavy snow was swirling and the world was crystal white. In the warm and spacious horse carriage, a man and woman were leaning against each other. She leaned tightly against that man's embrace and her hair was messy. Her cheeks were flushed, and there seemed to be ripples in her eyes, which were mesmerizing. She was still wrapped in his black cloak. She was like a treasure being held in his hands. Her smile was so pure and clean, and there was a hint of unconcealable sweetness amidst her shyness. Jiang Yuqing closed his eyes and looked tired. However, in his mind another scene flashed past. It was a scorching summer day. Thousand View Garden by the lake outside the piano room. A woman also revealed such a smile. It was bright and dazzling, shy and honest. She said to him, Yuqing, I have someone I like. Let's forget about the marriage agreement. Digression. Tomorrow at 12 a.m. mobile users please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from AI Network. Chapter 677. The next morning, Rongxiu left with Yanqing Umo 36 respected Elder Ming and the others. Although Chu Luiyue was reluctant to part with them, he had no choice but to do so. He secretly hoped that he could settle the matters here as soon as possible. The snow on the road had basically been cleared. After sending them off, Chu Luiyue returned to the Chongshu Pavilion. Yuchi Song and Elder Xia Yi were discussing the matter of sending people to Dahuang Swamp. Unlike the other sects, the people of Chongshu Pavilion, from top to bottom, were not interested in this matter. On the one hand, the Chongshu Pavilion had experienced a series of setbacks in the past 2 years, and these people had barely survived. They would rather cultivate in a down-to-earth manner than risk their lives for an uncertain opportunity. On the other hand, there were less than 100 people left in the entire Chongshu Pavilion. It was really not a wise choice to send so many people to take the risk. What if something happened again? Whether it was Yuchi Song, Elder Xiai, or the disciples in the sect, they were all very conservative about this trip. Moreover, they were going with the third princess in the other sections. No one knew what would happen during this trip. This trip is dangerous and it might not be beneficial for us. I think we shouldn't go, right? Elder Xiai asked tentatively. Anyway, this isn't a mandatory requirement. The other sects might be overjoyed that we have 10 vacancies. Yuchi Song stroked his beard. Although you're right, we'll inevitably be criticized if the other sects go except for the Chongshu Pavilion. We've just secured our position as one of the 4 major sections. It's really inappropriate if we don't go this time. On the surface, this matter seemed to be the result of a joint discussion between the royal family and the various sections. But in fact, without the third princess's permission, Song Wan would never take the initiative to suggest this. In other words, they had to go this time. Otherwise, they would very likely offend the third princess. Elder Xiai frowned with a grave expression. Why don't we choose a compromise? Let's just pick a few people to go. Now that there are few people in our Chongshu Pavilion, it should be reasonable for a few fewer people to go. Yuchi Song nodded. It's not impossible. However, it's a little troublesome as to who to send. Among the disciples of the Chongshu Pavilion, not many would be willing to go. He also found it difficult to choose. Master, let me go. A clear voice came from outside the door. The two of them raised their heads at the same time and saw Chu Luiyue, dressed in red, walking in through the snow outside the door. Luyu, you're back? Yuchi Song was the first to speak. He looked at Chu Luiyue up and down, and a hint of shock flashed in his eyes. You broke through to a rank 5 warrior? He had only left for 2 days. How did this girl break through again? Chu Luiyue blinked. I learned a lot at the Great Sect meeting and successfully broke through. Yuchi Song and Elder Xiai were speechless for a long time. Such talent, such speed of breakthrough. What else could they say? After a while, Yuchi Song cleared his throat and asked, Did the third princess make things difficult for you? Chu Luiyue smiled and shook her head. No, she didn't. The third princess asked me to go over and chat for a while. I was supposed to come back yesterday, but the snow was too heavy, so I stayed in the house. Yuchi Song heaved a sigh of relief after making sure that she was safe and sound. He didn't have a good impression of Shangguan Wan. He always felt that she was narrow-minded and narrow-minded. Not only did she take over the power of Shangguan Yu, but she was also engaged to Jiang Yuqing and had even set the date of the wedding. This made him even more disgusted. If Shangguan Wan and Shangguan Wan were really close, why would she be with her ex-fiancé? Yuchi Song didn't say anything and rarely got involved in the affairs of the royal family in the past 2 years. However, he still held a grudge against Shangguan Wan and Jiang Yuqing. That's good. Yuchi Song nodded and asked again. You said that you want to go to Dahuang Swamp? Chu Luiyue nodded seriously. Yes. Have you thought it through? Although there may be countless treasures hidden there, it is also extremely dangerous. It was really hard to predict what would happen during this trip. Luyu, your talent is top-notch and you have been improving rapidly. You don't have to go at all. Have you thought it through? Yuchi Song had seen how Chu Luiyue dealt with the Mestuan gravel, so he knew that she had an unusual trump card. In his opinion, no matter where Chu Luiyue cultivated, she would be able to break through smoothly and become a top-notch expert. It was really unnecessary to go to Dahuang Swamp. Chu Luiyue smiled. I've made up my mind. There's no need to persuade me, master. The Chongshu Pavilion can't be left unattended. I'm the most suitable person to go. She was Yuchi Song's disciple and the champion of the Wanzheng competition. She was powerful enough. If the Chongshu Pavilion only sent a few people, she was undoubtedly the most suitable person. Also, I have the ability to protect myself. I'll be careful. You don't have to worry, master. Yuchi Song and Elder Xiai exchanged a look. Chu Luiyue did seem to want to go. Moreover, she had a good reason. Yuchi Song hesitated for a long time before he finally agreed. All right. Since you want to go, I won't stop you. Just remember one thing, safety first. If you encounter any danger, don't try to be brave. If necessary, remember to call for help. He was talking about the whistle. Chu Luiyue felt a warmth in her heart. I understand. Don't worry, master. I'll go too. As soon as Chu Luiyue finished speaking, a familiar voice came from outside the door. She looked back. Chang Wanzhou was standing outside the door. The boy's beautiful and delicate face was expressionless. His soft, short blonde hair hung down with a few strands covering his eyes. However, the determination and stubbornness in his eyes were incomparably clear. Chu Luiyue smiled. She had already guessed it, so she wasn't surprised. She turned to look at Yuchi Song and Elder Shui. Little Zhou is not weak. It's not a bad idea for him to go with me. What do you think? Elder Shui laughed. Since you're going, the boy will naturally go with you. Even if we don't agree, he'll definitely sneak in. In that case, can we still say no? Chang Wanzhou was practically Chu Luiyue's pendant. He would go wherever she went. Moreover, he was unsociable and unruly, but he listened to every word Chu Luiyue said. It was actually not a bad idea for him to go with Chu Luiyue. After all, he was also very strong. Yuchi Song chuckled helplessly. Since that's the case, then both of you can go. Pavilion Master, can I go with you? Another little head poked out from behind Chang Wanzhou. A round little face appeared in front of them. It was none other than Yi Ranran. Elder Shui was a little surprised. Ranran, why do you want to go with us? Yi Ranran was still young. In his opinion, he was still a child. She had always been obedient. He didn't expect her to want to go to such a dangerous place like Dahuang Swamp. Yi Ranran said somewhat embarrassedly. I heard that there are many precious medicinal herbs in Dahuang Swamp. I want to go and have a look. She really wanted to go there. Disregarding everything else, Yi Ranran had always been extremely passionate and persistent when it came to alchemy. It was understandable that she was tempted by Dahuang Swamp. But that place was really dangerous. Elder Shui frowned and didn't say anything for a long time. Yi Ranran looked eagerly at Chu Luiyue. The corners of Chu Luiyue's mouth lifted slightly. She looked at Yuchi Song and Elder Shui. Let her go. Mobile users, please browse the Love Network for a better reading experience. Chapter 678. Ranran is very talented in alchemy, and she'll definitely benefit a lot from this trip. With me and Xiao Zhou here, we will definitely ensure her safety. Chu Luiyue said seriously. Yi Ranran quickly raised his hand. Pavilion Master, I'll cultivate hard and be careful. I won't be a burden to Luyu and Wanzhou. She wanted to go to Dahuang Swamp, but she wouldn't let herself be a burden to everyone. In that case, she might as well not go. Seeing that the two elders were still hesitating, Chu Luiyue added. With Ranran around, the three of us can take care of each other. Yuchi Song looked at Elder Shui. She's your disciple. You decide. Elder Shui pondered for a long time before he finally agreed. All right. But Ranran, you have to do what you said just now. Yi Ranran's combat strength was indeed not as good as Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou's. Her only advantage was probably her talent as a celestial physician. It would be good if she could really gain some experience on this trip. He just hoped that she wouldn't cause trouble to Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou. Yi Ranran's face was filled with joy. Thank you, Master. Thank you, Pavilion Master. Elder Shui laughed. You should be thanking Luyu. We don't have much time left. You'd better prepare yourselves in the next 2 days. They nodded in agreement. Chu Luiyue rose to his feet and left with Chang Wanzhou and Yi Ranran to discuss the departure. After they left, Elder Shui looked at Yuchi Song with a much more serious expression. Pavilion Master, have you heard about what happened in the Jiang Mansion in Shilin City in the past 2 days? Yuchi Song asked. You mean, the assassination attempt on Jiang Yuqing? Elder Shui nodded, then shook his head. Jiang Yuqing has offended a lot of people. It's normal for someone to attack him. But it was rumored that Jiang Yuqing had gathered his former subordinates, and that person had mixed in and almost succeeded. Pavilion Master, do you know that the people he called to the Jiang Mansion that day were actually the people who followed him to the southern border? Yuchi Song nodded. I know. Speaking of which, he did it for me to see. To be precise, it's for the Chongshu Pavilion. Elder Shui's eyes widened. You mean, I went to look for him earlier and told him about the Chaos Yuan gravel. He tried his best to clear his name and said that he would help investigate the matter. For this reason he gathered all those people together. He seems to have kept a low profile, but in fact if someone investigated they would have found out. So that's how it is. In this way no one will be alarmed and he will show that he wants to help you find out the truth. This Jiang Yuqing is really thoughtful. He's always been like this. He's never been at a disadvantage. Yuchi Song's tone was indifferent, but there was a hint of sarcasm in his eyes. However, the fact that someone tried to assassinate him should be an accident. He probably didn't expect that he would be ambushed in his own home. Elder Shui asked curiously, didn't you say that the assassin failed to hurt him? Yuchi Song sneered. If that person didn't succeed, would Jiang Yuqing be so exasperated that he sent people to search Shilin City overnight? In the past 2 days he had almost turned the entire city upside down. If he hadn't suffered a loss, he wouldn't have done this at this time. After all, he had just set the date of his wedding with the third princess. It was really inappropriate for him to do this. You're right. Elder Shai chuckled. I just don't know who did it. Someone who could take advantage of Jiang Yuqing's subordinates must not be an ordinary person. I'm really curious about Jiang Yuqing's injuries. Yuqi Song's eyes flickered with a hint of coldness. He brought this upon himself. Chu Luiyue returned to her room and cultivated in peace. After breaking through to the 5th stage, she clearly felt that her 5 senses were much more sensitive than before. After unlocking the 5 treasures, her cultivation speed was also much faster than before. This made Chu Luiyue feel much more at ease. After all, one's strength was what gave them confidence. After circulating the force in her body for 1 cycle, Chu Luiyue's entire person became energized. She was even looking forward to the trip to Dahuang Swamp. At this thought, she carefully checked the things that 36 respected Elder Ming and Rong Xiu had given her. With just a glance, he really found quite a few good things. In any case, they were more than enough to save her life if she encountered any danger. Chu Luiyue took out a bronze disc. This thing seems to be able to teleport? Chu Luiyue didn't think much of it at the time, but now that she took it out, she remembered that it was actually very valuable. More importantly, it was priceless. Even if you had the money, you might not be able to buy it. According to its level, the distance it could teleport was also different. Chu Luiyue looked at the bronze disc in her hand. It was only the size of a palm and was heavy when she picked it up. There were already rust spots on it. It was obvious that it had not been used for a long time. I wonder how far this thing can teleport. Chu Luiyue was curious. She wiped off the dust on it and injected a trace of origin power. The bronze disc did not move at all. Chu Luiyue was a little puzzled. As long as it was an origin tool, there would be some movement when origin power was injected. However, this thing did not even have the slightest movement. She poured in even more origin power. This time she used 50% of her strength. The bronze disc still did not change at all. Chu Luiyue was originally just curious, but now her fighting spirit was stimulated. She didn't believe that she couldn't even open a bronze disc like this. Thus, she took a deep breath and injected 100% of her origin power into it. Crack. A crisp shattering sound was suddenly heard. Chu Luiyue was stunned. She wouldn't break it, would she? This was given to me by someone. If I broke it just like that. Chu Luiyue quickly stopped and put the thing in front of her eyes to take a closer look. There was an extremely small crack in the middle of the bronze disc. It's really broken. Chu Luiyue felt a headache coming on. Just as she was thinking about how to repair this thing, a bright stream of light suddenly flashed through the gap. It disappeared in an instant. If Chu Luiyue was not staring at it closely, she would not have noticed it. Chu Luiyue frowned and stared at the crack for a while. This black seems a little off. Chu Luiyue's mind raced. In the end, she chose to continue injecting her origin power into it. Crack. The crack became even bigger. The light inside also flashed more frequently. Chu Luiyue continued to inject her origin power into it. After an unknown period of time, a piece of bronze suddenly shattered and fell. Something inside suddenly protruded. Chu Luiyue took a closer look and was stunned. This is actually a petal? Of course, this petal was not real. It was carved out of a transparent crystal. Although it was transparent at first glance, it was overflowing with light and color. It was extremely magnificent. The entire bronze disc was filled with cracks. It was as if a layer of bronze skin was protruding. Chu Luiyue injected another strand of origin power. Bang. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 679. The layer of bronze on top fell off in an instant. A few petals rose up one after another. Chu Luiyue widened her eyes slightly and looked at a blooming transparent crystal peach blossom. The petals were oval with needles on the edge and a few stamens in the middle. It was indeed a peach blossom. After shaking off all the bronze on the surface, all that was left was a crystal peach blossom that was cold to the touch, clear and beautiful. Chu Luiyue did not know whether to laugh or cry. So this is what this seemingly rough bronze disc looks like inside? I wonder how 36 respected Elder Ming kept it. It's actually placed like this? Chu Luiyue played with the thing in her hand. Could teleport. But how was this thing used? Suddenly the petals closed slightly. A subtle touch was felt. In the next moment, Chu Luiyue seemed to have injected a stream of force into it subconsciously. The stamen swayed gently and cut her slender fingers. The dark red blood instantly seeped into the transparent crystal and quickly dyed it pink. Chu Luiyue did the whole process smoothly. Seeing this scene, she did not have any fear in her heart. She just continued to stare at it. Then a stream of light flashed and the crystal peach blossom disappeared instantly. Chu Luiyue felt a pain in her wrist. She looked down and saw a pink peach blossom mark on the inner side of her left wrist. The imprint was only the size of a fingernail and it was a light pink color. It was vivid and lifelike on the side of her fair and delicate wrist. It recognized me as its master? Chu Luiyue felt a little strange. She did not know what this thing was, but it had inexplicably turned into a peach blossom mark on her wrist. With a thought, she let the force in her body surge toward the peach blossom mark. A white light flashed. A sense of emptiness came. Chu Luiyue's figure disappeared on the spot. Darkness flashed in front of her eyes and her body fell down as if it was being dragged by something. However, this feeling only lasted for a short while. Soon, Chu Luiyue's feet seemed to have stepped on solid ground. The darkness before his eyes gradually dissipated. Chu Luiyue closed his eyes and looked at the scene in front of him. This look almost made her heart jump out of her chest. Because this was her zither room. She loved this place very much in her previous life. Everything inside was arranged according to her preferences. With just one look, she could confirm that this was indeed her zither room. Bookshelf, desk, guqin. Chu Luiyue was shaken to the core when he came to this place and saw everything that he was so familiar with. The blood in his body seemed to have stopped flowing at this moment. In her mind, a rare blank appeared. For a moment, she did not know what to do. After a while, she took a deep breath and gradually calmed down the emotions in her heart. At the same time, a question popped up in his mind. The peach blossom crystal stone could indeed teleport, but how did it bring her here? She had thought of many places before, but she never would have thought that it would be here. Was it because she subconsciously wanted to come here? It's good that you're here. The voice of the legendary three-eyed eagle suddenly rang out. The purple gold Bodhi leaf is right here. Chu Luiyue was taken aback. Really? Are you sure? She knew the entire space of this zither room very well. She didn't remember putting the purple gold Bodhi leaf here. But the legendary three-eyed eagle was very sure, yes. And fortunately, because you have a contract with me, your body is tainted with the aura of the legendary three-eyed eagle clan. The purple gold Bodhi leaf is not alert at this time, so it's a good time to take it away. Chu Luiyue looked around. Then, where is that thing? Since she was already here, of course she had to seize the opportunity. If she followed the normal procedure, she didn't know when she would be able to enter this place. Now that she was here, Chu Luiyue couldn't care less about her sadness. Her mind was full of thoughts of finding the purple gold Bodhi leaf. It's in that guqin. The legendary three-eyed eagle quickly said. Chu Luiyue was stunned. What? Really, she would never have thought that the legendary purple gold Bodhi leaf was hidden in her phoenix-tailed guqin? You mean, that thing is hidden under the guqin, right? Chu Luiyue said uncertainly, her voice inexplicably weak. No, it's in that guqin. The corners of Chu Luiyue's eyes twitched fiercely. Do I have to split this guqin open and take the purple gold Bodhi leaf? One must know that this was an extremely precious guqin that she had always cherished. She really couldn't bear to destroy it now. Moreover, although this guqin looked delicate, it was actually made of extremely hard wood. With her current strength, it would take her a lot of effort to split it open. Most importantly, Jiang Yuqing had guarded this place very tightly. If she really caused a commotion, it would probably cause a lot of trouble. The legendary three-eyed eagle said, There's no need for that. The purple gold Bodhi leaf is sentient. It must have chosen to stay here because it likes it. We just have to lure it out. Chu Luiyue inwardly heaved a sigh of relief. Then how do we lure it out? The purple gold Bodhi is the divine tree of the legendary three-eyed eagle clan. There is an indescribable attraction between our clan and it. Therefore I can do it myself. That's even better. Chu Luiyue nodded in agreement while thinking to herself that this purple gold Bodhi was indeed a divine tree. Even a single leaf was so difficult to deal with. A black phantom slowly appeared in front of Chu Luiyue. In order not to attract attention, it was much smaller than usual, about the size of an ordinary eagle. When it spread its wings, it was just as long as the guqin. The legendary three-eyed eagle hovered in the air, looking down at the guqin from above. A heavy and majestic aura gradually emanated from its body, enveloping the guqin. Something seemed to flash on the body of the guqin. But Chu Luiyue didn't see it clearly. Then the third eye of the legendary three-eyed eagle suddenly opened. At the same time, a strange fluctuation suddenly appeared on the body of the guqin. It was as if something was running across it. Chu Liyue's mind stirred and he looked carefully. He saw that the fluctuation was rolling back and forth like a small wave. Something seemed to want to run out, but because the entire Guqin had been sealed by the legendary three-eyed eagle's aura, it could only run back and forth like this. Gradually the fluctuation became smaller. That thing finally revealed its true appearance. A purple gold leaf. It floated back and forth on the Guqin, shining all over. Chu Liyue exclaimed in his heart, "So this is the legendary purple gold Bodhi leaf." It looked like a leaf, but in fact it was more like an intelligent spirit. The third eye of the legendary three-eyed eagle stared at the purple gold Bodhi leaf and was about to put it away. A series of footsteps suddenly came from outside the door. "Greetings, eldest young master." Chu Liyue was shocked. Why did Jiang Yuqing suddenly come? Digression, 6 o'clock. Tomorrow we will resume 5 chapters together. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 680. Jiang Yuqing's voice sounded faintly. "I'm just here to take a look as usual. All of you can leave." "Yes." From the sound of it, it seemed that the guard in charge of guarding had left. Jiang Yuqing took out the key and opened the door. Creak. Jiang Yuqing walked into the room and turned around to close the door. The zither room was as quiet as ever. He looked around. Everything was still the same as before. It was as if nothing had happened. Jiang Yuqing's gaze finally fell on the zither. The broken string had not been repaired yet. Scene after scene replayed in his mind as if it had happened yesterday. It was incomparably vivid. Jiang Yuqing's expression gradually turned cold. He retracted his gaze, walked to the table at the side and sat down. Then he closed his eyes and let out a long breath. He didn't sleep well last night and had nightmares. It was different from the pain of being burned in a sea of fire. This time the weather in the dream was good and a gentle breeze blew. It was originally very good. Except for the words that person said. She said that she had someone she liked. In the dream, Jiang Yuqing heard himself asking over and over again who that person was. He also heard himself repeating that this engagement could not be called off. Actually, at that time he and Sheng Guanyu hadn't been engaged yet. Both sides only had this intention, but nothing had been done yet. Sooner or later the princess would ascend the throne, and sooner or later she would need an engagement. In the entire Tianling dynasty, countless young talents admired her. But in the end she chose him. Perhaps it was because of his father's identity, or perhaps it was because he was outstanding in all aspects. The world said that he and the princess were in love with each other, but he knew that wasn't the case. That person, born to be noble, perfect and flawless. Except, she didn't love him. It seemed that the princess treated him very well, but in reality she treated everyone very well. Therefore, in Jiang Yuqing's opinion, there was nothing special about it. This even made him feel a little disgusted. But no matter what he did, there seemed to be an invisible barrier around her. It could not be seen or touched, but it truly existed. He thought that no one would be able to get close to her or touch her, so he comforted himself that if he were to marry her, he would be closer to her than others. This wasn't bad either. It was not until that day that he realized he was wrong. In this world, there was someone who could easily enter her heart. And that person wasn't him. In the dream he was constantly suspicious and questioning, and his attitude was intense. But in reality that was not what he had done on that day. He was only surprised for a moment before he calmly asked who that person was. However, even now he still had no idea who that person was. At the end of the day he only smiled and said, "All right." However, in the end they still entered into a marriage contract. Jiang Yuqing rubbed his eyebrows and glanced at the Guqin. Suddenly his eyes narrowed. Soon after he quickly got up and walked to the side of the zither. At first glance the zither didn't seem to have changed. But, Jiang Yuqing stared intently at a certain spot on the zither. When did a purple gold color appear here? He would come to take a look at this zither almost every once in a while. Almost no one was more familiar with it than him. He remembered clearly that such a mark had never appeared on it before. In fact, it wasn't there the last time he came. He stretched out his hand and reached for the zither. Suddenly, a cold wind came from behind. Alarm bells rang in his heart and he immediately turned around. A huge black phantom pounced over. It directly knocked him to the side. Before he could see the other party's appearance clearly, he was already thrown to the ground. At the same time, a black figure suddenly appeared behind the cabinet on the other side. Jiang Yuqing's eyes suddenly widened. He actually didn't notice that there was someone in this room just now. He saw that black figure directly hugging the zither in his arms. Jiang Yuqing said angrily, "How dare you?" He held his breath, flipped over and pulled out his saber. Then he slashed straight at that person. The saber slashed down. That person's figure actually disappeared on the spot in an instant. Jiang Yuqing's saber missed. He was shocked and subconsciously looked back. However, he only saw a huge wing sweep past his eyes. Then, it also disappeared in an instant. Everything happened in an instant. By the time Jiang Yuqing reacted, there was no one else in the room other than him. The blood in his chest was surging. When the huge black figure pounced on him just now, it gave him a heavy blow. But how could he care about that at this moment? The zither had been stolen. Right in front of his eyes. Jiang Yuqing couldn't believe it. Guards! Guards! He shouted angrily. The guards outside heard the sound and hurriedly rushed over. Eldest young master. What's wrong? What's wrong? Tell me what's wrong. Jiang Yuqing swallowed the blood in his mouth. Because of his anger, his face was flushed red and his veins were bulging. His facial features looked a little ferocious. I told you to guard this zither room well. What did you do? How could you let someone sneak in without a sound? What's the use of having you? When the guards saw this, they were all shocked and immediately knelt down. Eldest young master, we've been guarding here all this time. We've never let anyone in. Jiang Yuqing recalled the scene of that person disappearing just now. It didn't seem to cause any fluctuations in the void. Instead, it disappeared in an instant. This kind of situation. It didn't seem to be an ordinary method. Are you sure that you've been guarding outside the door all this time? No one came in and you didn't notice any movements? Jiang Yuqing asked sternly. The guards trembled with fear. What this subordinate said is true. Looking at the shocked and terrified expressions on the guards' faces, Jiang Yuqing also believed them a little. But, in this way it would undoubtedly be more difficult to find out who that person was. And those huge black wings, he didn't seem to have seen such a magical beast before. You guys go down first. Don't say a word about what happened today. Jiang Yuqing said with an ugly expression. The guards looked at each other. Eldest young master was so angry. Was he going to let them go just like that? Jiang Yuqing glanced at them. What don't you understand? This subordinate will remember. After saying that, the guards hurriedly left. After they left, Jiang Yuqing looked at the place where the zither was placed. There was nothing on it. Everyone knew that the zither room in Thousand View Garden was one of the Empress concubine's favorite places when she was alive. If the news of the zither being stolen spread, someone would definitely use this matter to make a fuss. At that time, he who had been in charge of guarding this zither room would definitely become the target of public criticism. Therefore, he had to investigate this matter himself. Thinking of this, he glanced in the direction where the guards left, and a hint of killing intent flashed in his eyes. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 681. When Chu Luiyue opened her eyes again, she had already returned to her room in the Chongshu Pavilion. After confirming that she had returned safely, Chu Luiyue let out a long sigh of relief. That was close. She was almost discovered by Jiang Yuqing just now. If she was a step later, who would have thought that Jiang Yuqing would suddenly go to the zither room at this time? She took off her black robe and asked the legendary three-eyed eagle, "What's the matter? He didn't see you just now, did he?" "No." The voice of the legendary three-eyed eagle was as calm and indifferent as ever, with a trace of contempt. "He's just strong in appearance." Jiang Yuqing's reaction was simply terrible compared to a normal warrior of the same level. There must be something wrong with his body. Although the legendary three-eyed eagle didn't have a physical body now, it was still a divine beast after all. Moreover, after contracting with Chu Luiyue, its strength had been recovering. Although it was slow, its aura was indeed strengthening. It wouldn't be a problem to deal with Jiang Yuqing. Chu Luiyue was relieved when she heard this. After listening to the analysis of the legendary three-eyed eagle, she couldn't help but sneer. "I've also sensed it. His strength is indeed much weaker than before. It seems that the matter of the Chaos Yuan gravel was indeed done by him. Although I don't know what method he used to make it seem that his realm hasn't changed at all, his strength has clearly regressed. In addition to the bloody hole that she had sent out earlier, the current Jiang Yuqing's body was probably in a mess. However, this thing is really useful. After such a long journey back and forth, the force in my body only consumed a little." As Chu Luiyue spoke, she looked at the peach blossom mark on the inner side of her left wrist. The peach blossoms were shining and blooming gently. Although she didn't know how this thing suddenly brought her to the zither room, being able to return safely and smoothly was enough to prove its ability. This thing was indeed much more useful than she had expected. The next time I see 36th Elder Ming, I have to thank him properly. After saying that, Chu Luiyue once again confirmed that the doors and windows were locked and that no one would disturb her. Only then did she take out the zither from her universe ring and carefully placed it in front of her. She was about to subdue the purple gold Bodhi leaf just now, but Jiang Yuqing came and had to stop. Looking at the zither, Chu Luiyue's feelings were complicated. She really didn't expect that she would bring it back so inexplicably. Jiang Yuqing didn't dare to make this matter public, so she wasn't worried that he would investigate it openly. After thinking for a while, Chu Luiyue collected her thoughts and prepared to find the purplish gold Buddha leaf again. He looked up, down, left and right and finally saw a purple gold color in the corner. It was as if someone had used a brush to lightly draw a line on it, and it was brilliant. That wisp of purple gold light swayed slightly, as if it was restless and wanted to escape. However, it was because she was Jiang, had escaped. Yes, this was a seal that the legendary three-eyed eagle had hurriedly placed on him. Chu Luiyue focused her eyes. Let's begin. Crush. The legendary three-eyed eagle appeared again. The huge black figure was suspended in mid-air. A powerful pressure filled the entire room. The third eye of the legendary three-eyed eagle suddenly opened. The layer of black on the zither quickly dissipated. A purple gold leaf suddenly leaped out from within. A red light shot out of the legendary three-eyed eagle's eye. Bang! The purple gold leaf was instantly wrapped up. It couldn't move. At a glance, the outer layer was oval in color. It was clear and translucent, and it looked like a piece of amber. Chu Luiyue reached out and took the item. It was slightly warm to the touch and emitted a faint leaf fragrance. Holding it in her hand, she could clearly feel the aura and power that was full of vitality. The force in Chu Luiyue's body seemed to be attracted by this power and gradually increased its flow speed. This purple gold Bodhi leaf is so powerful? Chu Luiyue was shocked and her eyes widened slightly. Just this purple gold Bodhi leaf alone contained more energy than almost all the medicinal herbs she had ever seen. This is the leaf of a divine tree. Normal herbs can't be compared to it. There was a hint of pride in the legendary three-eyed eagle's voice. To be worshipped as a divine tree by the legendary three-eyed eagle clan, it was naturally extraordinary. Chu Luiyue looked at the small ball in her hand. So, it's temporarily locked up? That's right. When I find the rest of the items, I can rebuild my body. Even the calm and indifferent legendary three-eyed eagle could not hide its excitement when talking about this. It had been trapped in the heavenly square cauldron for 1,000 years. It had thought that it would be tortured and destroyed by the karmic fire, but it had not expected that it would be reborn one day. Logically speaking, it was impossible for the purple gold Bodhi leaf to appear in a place like the Tianling dynasty. However, it had appeared. If this was not fate, then what was it? Chu Luiyue was also very happy that the legendary three-eyed eagle was one step closer to restoring its body. However, she also had a question in her heart. How did this purple gold Bodhi leaf appear in this guqin? She had not told the legendary three-eyed eagle her true identity. Therefore, it did not know that this guqin was originally hers. She had played this guqin for more than 10 years, but she did not know that there was a purple gold Bodhi leaf hidden in it. Could it be that it was hidden so well that even she did not notice it? After all, if not for the legendary three-eyed eagle's reminder, she would not have known about it. This purple gold Bodhi leaf should have been in this guqin for several years. As for who put it there, I don't know. Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. You're saying that someone deliberately put it in there? Of course. There are only 2 purple gold Bodhi trees in the world. One is in my clan and the other is in the Far East. And that place is more than 10,000 miles away from here. It is impossible for such a small purple gold Bodhi leaf to arrive here alone. Therefore, someone must have deliberately brought it here. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. A few years? Why did she not know that there was an extra purple gold Bodhi leaf in here? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 682. After thinking for a while, Chu Luiyue still could not come up with an answer. In the end, she could only put this matter aside for the time being. After carefully putting away the purple gold Bodhi leaf, she once again entered into a state of cultivation. 2 days passed in a hurry. On the morning of the 3rd day, Chu Luiyue had just completed a cycle when she heard Yi Ranran's voice from outside. Luyu, we should set off. Chu Luiyue opened her eyes. Her eyes were clear, and there seemed to be light flickering in the depths of her eyes. After unlocking the 5 treasures, not only did her cultivation speed increase by a lot, Even the force in her body was purer than before. She clenched her fists and stretched her muscles and bones. She could faintly hear the sound of bones cracking. This long-awaited feeling of being filled with power made Chu Luiyue feel refreshed. She walked over to open the door. Yi Ranran and Chang Wanzhou were already waiting for her. "Let's go." After the few of them went down the mountain, they went straight to Pingliang Square. They were going to Dahuang Swamp from there. Shilin City, which had always been bustling, seemed to have become somewhat solemn today. There were even fewer people on the streets. When they arrived at Pingliang Square, they realized that there were even fewer people here. This was because the Black Cavalry had already imposed martial law in advance. In the huge square, several teleportation portals were temporarily closed. Only the one in the center was open. Beside the teleportation portal, there were 1,000 Black Cavalry troops ready to set off. At the front of the Black Cavalry was a young man in black armor. His shoulders and back were straight, and his whole body exuded a strong murderous aura. It was Mu Qinghe. Although he was a general in Shilin City, most of the time he wore casual clothes. Now that he suddenly put on his armor, the fierce and biting cold aura that he had fought in battles with thousands of people was instantly obvious. It was daunting. Yi Ranran said in a low voice, "Vice Admiral Mu looks different today." As expected of the Lieutenant General of the Black Cavalry. To be able to rise rapidly and reach his current position in a short 10 years, he was indeed capable. Chu Luiyue stared at her for a moment before looking away. His eyes were calm. The current Mu Qinghe no longer had anything to do with her. Yi Ranran glanced at her. Seeing that her reaction was ordinary, she felt a little strange. "Luyu, aren't you close to Vice Admiral Mu? Should I go and say hello?" Chu Luiyue smiled. "The third princess and the others will be here soon. Isn't this a little inappropriate?" Yi Ranran thought about it and agreed. After all, there was still 1,000 Black Cavalry behind them. "Then let's go to the side and wait? I think some people from the other sects have already arrived." Chu Luiyue nodded. The three of them walked to the other side. Mu Qinghe raised her eyes slightly, just in time to see Chu Luiyue and the others walking past. Many people turned to look at her. Curiosity, admiration, respect, jealousy, envy, all kinds of gazes fell on her. Compared to the last time they met, Chu Luiyue seemed to have changed. She seemed to be more dazzling than before. This feeling was hard to describe. In short, it was like a piece of raw stone that was gradually polished and gradually released its own brilliance. Or perhaps she was originally a dusty pearl. Now that the layer of dust had finally been wiped off, she was shining brightly. She was completely different from the restrained and cautious woman he saw in country Yaochen a few months ago. In such a short period of time, Chu Luiyue had already become a famous figure in West Hill. Her reputation was great and she was unparalleled. Although he was the one who found her, the things that happened after Chu Luiyue came to West Hill had nothing to do with him. Especially after she moved out of the Mu clan, the two of them had almost no contact. Now that they met again, he felt an inexplicable sigh in his heart. However, Mu Qinghe quickly retracted his gaze after taking a glance at her. There were already people from a few sects who had arrived. Chu Luiyue looked over and saw many familiar faces. When they saw the three of them, the people who were chatting with each other immediately fell silent. They had already heard that the Chongshu Pavilion would only send 3 people over. Because of this, the other sects even had an extra slot. They had long been guessing who the Chongshu Pavilion would send. When they saw Chu Luiyue and the other 2, they were more or less shocked. These 3 people were the best seedlings in the Chongshu Pavilion. Not to mention Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou, even Yi Ranran had displayed extraordinary talent as a celestial physician during the sect competition. No matter what, the Dahuang Swamp was a dangerous place. Was the Chongshu Pavilion really willing to release all 3 of them at once? Weren't they afraid that something would happen? Chu Luiyue turned a blind eye to everyone's gazes. Chang Wanzhou didn't care at all. Yi Ranran. Anyway, she was following Luyu and Wanzhou. What was there to be afraid of? Hence, the 3 of them calmly found a place to stand at the side. Then some people greeted them. Chu Luiyue and the others also responded to each other. "It seems that the Chongshu Pavilion is quite confident in you guys this time. They actually let you guys come together?" A shrill voice was heard. Chu Luiyue looked up lazily. "Ning Jiao Jiao." Chu Luiyue smiled and slowly said, "That's right. Young Miss Ning, are you worried about our safety? With so many people around, I don't think anything will happen. What do you think?" Ning Jiao Jiao snorted. "It's better to be safe than sorry. I'm just saying that casually. I don't mean anything else." Compared to before, her attitude towards Chu Luiyue had changed quite a bit. This was a world where strength was respected after all. Chu Luiyue first took first place in the Wanzheng competition and then won 3 rounds in a row at the sect competition. Ning Jiaojiao was present at that time. Even if she was full of dissatisfaction, she had to admit that Chu Luiyue's strength was indeed not to be underestimated. Before coming out this time, her father, Ning Binghai, specially instructed her not to cause trouble. Ning Jiaojiao had suffered before, so she naturally didn't dare to be too presumptuous now. She was just talking nonsense. Of course, no one knew what she was thinking. Chu Luiyue saw that she had retreated in the face of difficulties, so he didn't care too much. The corners of his lips curled up and he didn't say anything. Only then did Ning Jiaojiao secretly heave a sigh of relief. Suddenly, her gaze focused and she couldn't help but ask, "You broke through to a stage 5 warrior?" Chu Luiyue glanced at her indifferently. Wasn't it obvious? Only then did Ning Jiaojiao realize that she had lost her composure. She bit her lip and looked away. However, she was still a little shocked in her heart. How long had Chu Luiyue been in Xiling? She actually broke through from a stage 3 warrior to a stage 5 warrior? Didn't that mean that she was even stronger? Not only Ning Jiaojiao but the people standing at the side were also somewhat shocked. What's there to be proud of when you're a stage 5 warrior? A cold voice with a hint of mockery came from behind. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 683. The surroundings fell silent for a moment. Chu Luiyue turned around and saw that it was the people from the Purple Shao Sword sect. This was said by the man in the lead. He looked to be in his late 20s. He was tall and thin, had an ordinary face, and the ends of his hair were faintly purple. Song Qingyan? Chu Luiyue recognized him. This person was the eldest son of the Purple Shao Sword sect master, Song Lian. He was also the young master of the sect. His talent was not bad. If he remembered correctly, he had just broken through to the upper stage of the 7th stage 2 years ago. From the looks of it, he didn't continue to break through. However, with his realm and strength, it was normal for him to not take the 5th stage Chu Luiyue seriously. Senior brother Qingyan, he's the champion of the Wanzheng competition. Moreover, he won against 3 people in the sect competition. It's inevitable that he's a little arrogant. Chu Luiyue glanced at the woman behind him. Well, she was also an acquaintance. Yang Qin. She seemed to be persuading Song Qingyan, but she couldn't hide the envy in her eyes. Chu Luiyue looked innocent. I was standing here just now. I don't think I said anything. Why are you so smug? Yang Qin choked. Song Qingyan was still the experienced one. He scanned Chu Luiyue from head to toe as if he didn't hear her. It's just a small fight. Qin, when you see more of the world in the future, you naturally won't take this seriously. Cultivate well in the future. How can you lose to her? Chu Luiyue raised his brows and secretly admired her. It had only been a short while, but Yang Qin was already doing so well in the Purple Shao Sword sect. Even Song Qingyan spoke to her like this. In his memory, Song Qingyan was very arrogant because of his identity as the young master of the Purple Shao Sword sect. Now, it seemed that this habit hadn't changed at all. Yang Qin seemed to be blushing. Thank you for your praise, senior brother Qingyan. Song Qingyan looked at her and smiled. He patted her arm and walked to the other side. Yi Ranran was furious and wanted to go forward to argue with them. Chu Luiyue pulled her back and shook his head gently. Yi Ranran was furious. Luyu, that person said that to you. Are you going to just let it go? Chu Luiyue smiled. It's just a few words. You didn't lose anything. Why bother with them? I don't know how many people have said this about me in private. Don't tell me that I'm going to investigate every single one of them. But they did it in front of us. Everyone's almost here. Let's keep a low profile so as to avoid unnecessary trouble. All right. Yi Ranran seemed to be holding back his anger, but seeing Chu Luiyue's firm attitude, he had no choice but to obey. She glanced at Song Qingyan and whispered, "What's so good about being the young master of the Purple Shao Sword sect? When he was your age, Luyu, he was a far cry from you." The corners of Chu Luiyue's lips lifted slightly. I know. Song Qingyan was a few years older than her. Back then he was not convinced by her and challenged her one-on-one. In the end, Song Qingyan was beaten so badly that he took a detour when he saw her. He didn't even attend the regular palace banquet. Chang Wanzhou glanced at Song Qingyan coldly and retracted his gaze. Song Qingyan faintly felt a chill run down his spine. When he looked back, he did not discover anything. On the other hand, Chu Luiyue and the other two were whispering something. Their expressions were calm and they even laughed occasionally. It was as if they didn't take his words seriously at all. Song Qingyan sneered. Qin, are you right? This Chu Luiyue isn't just a little arrogant. When we reach Dahuang Swamp, she'll be in trouble. Yang Qin lowered her head and didn't say anything. Luyu? Surprised cheers sounded. Chu Luiyue looked over with a smile on his face. A familiar face appeared in front of him. It was Mu Hongyu. She had originally come with the people from Dragon Teeth Mountain, but when she saw Chu Luiyue from afar, she couldn't help but rush over first. I knew you would go too. Only the three of you are going to Chongshu Pavilion? Mu Hongyu had been busy cultivating with Jian Shai these few days, so she didn't know anything about the outside world. Chu Luiyue nodded. Senior brothers and senior sisters can't find the time, so they sent the three of us. A sneer came from the side. Song Qingyan had a mocking expression as he said to the person beside him, Hey, you make it sound nice. Who doesn't know that Chongshu Pavilion is like this because they can't send anyone? A Chongshu Pavilion with less than 100 people was actually ranked as one of the 4 major sects with them. It really made him feel proud. The smile on Chu Luiyue's face faded slightly. Mu Hongyu had already spoken with a cold smile. Isn't it enough to send the 3 of them? I remember that many people here have participated in the sect conference, right? Could it be that any of you defeated Luyu? Of course, not everyone at the sect conference could fight with Chu Luiyue. But who didn't know that she had defeated a rank 6 warrior? There were quite a number of people present who weren't even rank 6 warriors. Chu Luiyue was indeed strong. There was no doubt about that. The surroundings suddenly became much quieter. Song Qingyan frowned. Who are you? How dare you be impudent in front of me? Yang Qiner whispered. Senior brother Qingyan, she's that faint yuan body? Song Qingyan narrowed his eyes. The slave that Jian Fengqi spent 6 million white crystal coins to buy? As soon as this was said, everyone looked over with subtle expressions. Everyone could hear the provocation in this sentence. In the Tianling dynasty, the status of a slave was inferior, but Mu Hongyu had the faint yuan body, so most people were more envious and jealous. With such a physique, would she still be afraid of being looked down upon when she became a powerhouse in the future? But if this identity was brought out alone, it was obvious that it was deliberately embarrassing. Chu Luiyue's face turned cold. A handsome young man had already walked forward and said calmly, Hongyu is our disciple. Hongyu is the last disciple of our hill master. I wonder if young Master Song has any questions? Song Qingyan's expression changed slightly. The surrounding people also revealed looks of astonishment. Mu Hongyu was actually Jian Shai's disciple? If that was the case, then her identity would be extraordinary. One had to know that Jian Shai had only accepted 3 disciples in all these years. Mu Hongyu was the 4th. Jian Shai didn't seem to care about her identity as a slave. And since he was willing to do so, it was enough to show how much he valued Mu Hongyu. In other words, he was Mu Hongyu's backer. Although Song Qingyan had always been arrogant and looked down on others, he wasn't stupid. He knew who he could offend and who he couldn't. Dragon Teeth Mountain's Jian Shai was an extremely protective person. Even his father didn't dare to go against Jian Shai, let alone him. He snorted coldly, waved his sleeves fiercely, and turned his face away. The young man walked in front of Chu Luiyue with a gentle and polite smile. Miss Chu, I'm Zhu Hong. Before we came, the mountain master and young master instructed us to take care of you. I wonder if you're willing to come with us on this trip to Dahuang Swamp? Jian Shai and Jian Fengqi? Chu Luiyue was stunned for a moment. Looking at Zhu Hong and the other's sincere expressions, her eyebrows curved. Sure. Thank you in advance. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 684. The relationships between the major sects varied. Upon seeing Dragon Teeth Mountain's attitude, it was obvious that they wanted to protect Chongsu Cabinet. Many people looked at each other with fear in their hearts. Ever since the sneak attack on the Chongshu Pavilion and its decline, Dragon Teeth Mountain had become the boss of all the sections. Although the Purple Shao Sword sect was not weak, it was still inferior to Dragon Teeth Mountain. Therefore, until now they had tried their best to avoid conflict with Dragon Teeth Mountain. As for the other sects, there was no need to mention them. Chu Luiyue thought to herself, I owe Dragon Teeth Mountain another favor this time. No matter what, this trip to Dahuang Swamp should save her a lot of unnecessary trouble. Although she was not afraid, she could not be bothered to deal with them one by one. Both sides introduced themselves to each other. The people of Dragon Teeth Mountain had seen or heard of Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou's strength. The talent that Yi Ranran displayed that day was also amazing. Therefore they were very polite to the 3 of them. Although there were many disciples in Dragon Teeth Mountain, Jian Shai was upright and forthright, so most of the people in the sect were like him and did not have many tricks up their sleeves. Speaking of which, Jian Fengqi was the most rebellious and unruly person in Dragon Teeth Mountain. Therefore, Chu Liyue's impression of Dragon Teeth Mountain had always been quite good. In short, after the two sides communicated with each other, they realized that they were quite compatible with each other and their relationship became closer. The surrounding people looked at them with complicated expressions. Some were curious, some were envious, and some were disdainful. However, Chu Liyue and Mu Hongyu did not take these seriously. The third princess has arrived. After waiting for a while, when everyone had basically arrived, Shang Guanwan finally appeared. The black cavalry on both sides had already cleared the road. Shang Guanwan walked over slowly. Standing behind her were two elders of the imperial family, Elder Qiushi and Elder Duanmu Chun. Behind them was another person, Jiang Yuqing. The two of them were not married yet, so Jiang Yuqing did not walk side by side with Shang Guanwan. Seeing their arrival, the entire Pingliang square quieted down. Everyone bowed in unison. Long live the third princess. Chu Liyue, who was standing in the crowd, also followed suit and curtsied. When she lowered her head, a mocking look flashed across her eyes. Shang Guanwan must have been looking forward to this scene for a long time, right? When he got up again, Chu Liyue's expression had returned to normal. Shang Guanwan stood still and swept her gaze over the crowd. This consort is heading to the Great Desolate Swamp, this time to search for medicine for Imperial Father. Although the Great Desolate Swamp had supreme treasures, it was also extremely dangerous. I am truly grateful that all of you are willing to come along and lend me a hand. His words were spoken in a polite manner. If anyone can help this consort find the treasure she needs, this consort will definitely reward them handsomely. Apart from those few items, all the items that you find will belong to you. Hearing this, many people's eyes began to shine with desire. Those who dared to explore the Great Desolate Swamp all had this mentality. Now, Shang Guanwan said that apart from the items she wanted, the rest would belong to them. How could they not be excited? Many thanks to the third princess. Shang Guanwan smiled. I hope that everyone will have a smooth journey and that this trip will not be in vain. Vice Admiral Mu, please. Mu Qing has stepped forward and cupped his fists in salute. The 1,000 black cavalry will be divided into two teams. The first team will be in front and the second team will be behind. You must ensure the safety of the third princess and everyone else. As he spoke, he raised his right arm. The black guards behind him split into two neatly from the middle. The sound of iron boots stepping on the lapis lazuli ground was exceptionally powerful. The first team of 500 black cavalry walked onto the transportation formation. Then Shang Guanwan and the others followed. Mu Qing stood beside her as if to protect her. Then the disciples of the various large sects followed. Finally, it was the second team of 500 black cavalry. The people standing around all knelt on one knee and said loudly, "Farewell, third princess. Activate." Mu Qing ordered. The transportation formation spun faster and faster. Then everyone's figures disappeared. The Great Desolate Swamp was extremely far from the West Hill. Even if they used the transportation formation, it would take a lot of time. Fortunately, this transportation formation was specially built and maintained daily, so there were not too many spatial turbulences. Everyone was in the middle of it, but they were not affected much. Although there were many people, Mu Qing had arranged for people to carry water pearls that were specially used in the transportation formation. They easily dispelled the darkness and illuminated many people. Such water pearls were expensive to make. Ordinary people could not afford even one. But who was the third princess? 100 or so was considered a small number. Such a scale of travel made many people secretly envious. The third princess is indeed extraordinary. She uses these water pearls as if they are free. Who are you and who is the third princess? In a few months, the entire Tianling dynasty will be hers, let alone these water pearls. That's true. I heard that back then, when the Empress concubine went on an inspection tour, the scale seemed to be even bigger than this. It's a pity that the Empress concubine only brought the black cavalry back then, so we couldn't see anything. The Empress concubine's status is comparable to the current emperor. Even if she's a princess, she can still mobilize 100,000 black cavalry. The third princess hasn't. Naturally, she can't be compared. But that's all in the past. There's nothing to talk about. The people around were whispering. Their voices were very soft. But because Chu Liyue had already mastered the 5 treasures, she could hear most of it. She faintly smiled, seemingly inadvertently raising her head to look. In front, Mu Qinghe was standing beside Shangguan and whispering something. It seemed like she was explaining the situation in Dahuang Swamp. Your Highness, we have to first reach the teleportation formation in Shijiang, and then go to Dahuang Swamp from there. Within Dahuang Swamp, the miasma extends for hundreds of miles. We have to. Mu Qinghe said bit by bit, and Shangguan also listened carefully. From where Chu Luiyue was, she couldn't see the expression on Shangguan's face, but she could see her nodding from time to time. She seemed to be very serious. The corner of Chu Luiyue's lips moved and she thought silently. Mu Qinghe's explanation was quite detailed. When she went to Dahuang Swamp back then, no one told her about all the dangers in such detail. She couldn't remember how many dangers she had encountered in the middle. What Mu Qinghe said was the experience she had gained from fighting in Dahuang Swamp for several years. It was also her experience. The world only knew that Mu Qinghe had volunteered to join the Black Cavalry. In 10 years she had made outstanding military contributions. In the end, she had suppressed the rebel army in Dahuang Swamp and held military power in her hands. She had made great contributions to stabilize the position of the princess. However, very few people knew that the princess had also entered Dahuang Swamp several times. The current Mu Qinghe was very powerful, but he wasn't this powerful from 10 years ago. Without Shangguan Yu's secret help, he might have died in Dahuang Swamp long ago. But now these were all in the past. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 685. Chu Luiyue listened nonchalantly, and his mood was calm without any ripples. It sounded like nothing major had happened in Dahuang Swamp for the past 2 years. With the Black Cavalry stationed there, it was naturally much more stable than before. However, those people were in charge of guarding. This time, Shangguan was going there to find a few herbs and the legendary fiend's blood. Thus, it was naturally more convenient for her to bring some people along. Shangguan was indeed listening very seriously, and she almost remembered every word Mu Qinghe said. She had never been to Dahuang Swamp before, and this was her first time. Rumors had it that the place was barren and dangerous, so she had no interest in it at all. If it weren't for the fact that she had to find a suitable place to carry out her plan, she might never step into Dahuang Swamp's land in her entire life. As for those legendary treasures and even the inheritance of the strong, why would the third princess of the Tianling dynasty care about these things? I will be promoted in a few months, and the entire Tianling dynasty will be mine then. Why should I risk my life in a place like Dahuang Swamp? Not mentioning the danger, I might not even find anything good there. Now that I'm listening to Mu Qinghe, I'll be more confident when the time comes. This is the general situation of Dahuang Swamp. If your highness has anything you don't understand, feel free to ask. The last general will definitely tell you everything he knows. After putting on the armor and leading the troops, Mu Qinghe's way of addressing herself changed. Shangguan curved her lips and smiled. I understand. Thank you, Vice Admiral Mu. If it weren't for you, this trip would have been very dangerous. Mu Qinghe lowered her head. Your Highness, you flatter me. This is what the last general should do. Vice Admiral Mu, you don't have to be humble. When we reach Dahuang Swamp, we might have to trouble you even more. Don't you think so, Yuqing? As she spoke, she looked at Jiang Yuqing at the side. However, Jiang Yuqing was thinking about something and actually fell into deep thought, so he didn't hear her. Shangguan was dazed. Yuqing? Yuqing? Jiang Yuqing came back to his senses and looked up at her. What happened? Shangguan frowned slightly when she saw that he seemed to have woken up from a dream. Along the way, for some reason, Jiang Yuqing seemed absent-minded. Mu Qinghe's words were so important, but he didn't listen? If he remembered correctly, Jiang Yuqing didn't seem to have been to the Great Desolate Swamp, right? He was such a cautious person. Logically speaking, he should be very concerned about these things. His nonchalant manner was indeed a little strange. Didn't you hear what Vice Admiral Mu said just now? Jiang Yuqing coughed and straightened his collar. Oh, Vice Admiral Mu has already told me about this. Shangguan was skeptical. Mu Qinghe was his woman, so it was normal for her to tell him this in advance. But he wasn't in the right state. Thinking of this, worry surfaced in her eyes. Yuqing, are you okay? Are you too tired these few days? I know that he's been looking for the person who tried to assassinate me recently. Could it be that he's like this because he's exhausted himself over this matter? Jiang Yuqing's eyes flickered, but he didn't admit or deny it. Maybe a little. But I've already handed the matters in Xiling City to Sun Qi and the rest. Shangguan looked at his expression and thought that she had guessed correctly. That's true. Jiang Yuqing is now in a high position, Yet he was suddenly assassinated by an unknown person. Furthermore, he couldn't find the culprit even after searching for a few days. It's inevitable that his reputation will be tarnished. Sun Qi has always been good at doing things. Don't worry too much. Jiang Yuqing smiled and nodded. He glanced behind him without batting an eyelid, then quickly retracted his gaze. After a while, he suddenly asked, "Do you remember? I remember that Mu Hongyu has a faint yuan body?" Mu Qinghe nodded. Sheng Guanwan strangely asked, "Why? What's the matter? Why did you suddenly mention her?" "Nothing. I'm just curious because I heard them say a few words when I came over just now. After all, such a physique hasn't appeared in this mainland for thousands of years. I heard that people with such a physique can casually travel through space?" "Yeah. Back then Yuxiang Hall seemed to have spent quite a lot of effort to capture her. If it weren't so rare, why would Jian Fengqi bear to spend 6 million white crystals to bid for her?" Even though Sheng Guanwan spent most of her time in the palace, she knew everything that happened outside. Actually, when she saw Mu Hongyu just now, she couldn't help but take a few more glances. But, other than looking a little cute and lively, I can't see anything special for the time being. However, I didn't expect Dragon Teeth Mountain's mountain master to take her in as a disciple. Sheng Guanwan's tone was calm. In her heart, she looked down on people who were born as slaves. However, Jian Shai didn't value these things very much. Otherwise, he wouldn't have insisted on marrying that ordinary woman as his wife. Speaking of which, Jian Shai and Jian Fengqi could be considered her benefactors. It seems that she has a good relationship with Chu Luiyue and the others? Sheng Guanwan frowned slightly. Mu Qinghe explained. "Your Highness, eldest young master. Mu Hongyu is actually also from country Yaoqian. And they used to be students in the same academy." "No wonder." Sheng Guanwan nodded in understanding. In her heart, she hated Mu Hongyu and Chu Luiyue even more. Jiang Yuqing looked at Mu Hongyu meaningfully. Could she be the person who broke into the zither room and stole the zither that day? After an unknown period of time, a ray of light finally appeared in the darkness ahead. "We're here," Mu Qinghe said in a deep voice. Everyone quieted down and was somewhat nervous. The white light in front of them expanded rapidly. An exit finally appeared in front of everyone. The black cavalry at the front took the lead and walked out. Then Sheng Guanwan and the others followed. Yuranran was a little worried but also a little excited. "Are we in Dahuang Swamp when we go out?" Chu Luiyue opened her mouth and wanted to say, "Not yet," but in the end she swallowed her words. The few of them followed the crowd and walked out. After a burst of force, there was a lot of light in front of them. The white light in front of Chu Luiyue's eyes flashed, and she felt that her feet finally stepped on solid ground. She closed her eyes and waited for her eyes to adapt to the light before looking forward. A vast and boundless desert suffused with a dazzling golden color. The hills rose and fell and heat waves surged. Due to the blazing heat, even the void seemed to have become distorted. Exclamations could be heard around them. "So this is Dahuang Swamp," Mu Qinghe said. "This is only the edge of Shijiang. The real Dahuang Swamp needs to be further in." The person who spoke quickly shut up awkwardly. Many people were shocked. This wasn't Dahuang Swamp? Then what was the real Dahuang Swamp like? Mu Qinghe made a gesture. "Team 1. Open." The 500 black cavalry at the front immediately turned around and marched to the side. In a moment, they arrived about 500 steps away from the teleportation array. Everyone shouted in a low voice and attacked at the same time. In an instant, yellow sand flew everywhere. A huge teleportation array appeared in the desert. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows slightly. "Oh, the teleportation array that she personally set up is still there." Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 686. The surroundings were silent for a moment. Chu Luiyue turned around and saw that it was the people from the Purple Cloud Sword sect. This was said by the leader of the group. He looked to be in his late 20s. He was tall and thin with an ordinary face and the ends of his hair had a faint purple hue. Song Qingyan? Chu Luiyue recognized him. This person was the eldest son of the sect master of the Purple Cloud Sword sect, Song Lian. He was also the young master of the Purple Cloud Sword sect. His talent wasn't bad. If he remembered correctly, he had just broken through to the 7th rank 2 years ago. Now, it seemed like he didn't continue to break through. However, with his realm and strength, it was normal for him to look down on Chu Luiyue, who was only at the 5th rank. Senior brother Qingyan, he is the champion of the Wanzheng Association. Moreover, he won against 3 people in the sect meeting. It's inevitable for him to be a little arrogant. Chu Liwei glanced at the woman who was speaking behind him. Right, she was also an acquaintance. Yang Xian. She seemed to be persuading Song Qingyan, but she couldn't hide the envy in her eyes. Chu Liwei looked innocent. I was just standing here just now. I don't think I said anything. Why are you so smug? Yang Xian was speechless. Song Qingyan was still the old Taoist. He scanned Chu Liwei from head to toe as if he didn't hear what she said. It's just a small fight. Xian, when you see more of the world in the future, you will naturally not take this kind of seriously. If you cultivate well in the future, how could you lose to her? Chu Liwei raised her eyebrows and secretly admired him. It hadn't been long, but Yang Xian was already doing so well in the Purple Firmament Sword sect. Even Song Qingyan spoke to her like this. In her memory, Song Qingyan was very arrogant because of his identity as the young master of the Purple Firmament Sword sect. Now, it seemed that this bad habit hadn't changed at all. Yang Xian seemed to blush. Thank you for your praise, senior brother Qingyan. Song Qingyan looked at her and smiled. He patted her arm and led his men to the other side. Yi Ranran was furious and wanted to go forward to argue with them. Chu Liwei pulled her back and shook his head gently. Yi Ranran was angry. Liwei, are you going to let that person off just like that? Chu Liwei smiled. It's just a few words. I didn't lose anything. Why should I be calculative with them? I don't know how many people have said that about me in private. Am I going to pursue every single one of them? But they did it in front of me. Everyone is almost here. Let's keep a low profile to avoid more trouble. Yi Ranran seemed to be holding back her anger, but seeing Chu Liu's firm attitude, she could only listen. Yi Ranran felt like she was holding back her anger, but seeing Chu Liu's firm attitude, she could only obey. What's there to be proud of as the young master of the Purple Firmament Sword sect? When he was your age, he was far inferior to you. When he was your age, Liwei, he was far worse than you. I know. Song Qingyan was a few years older than her. Back then he wasn't convinced of her strength and challenged her to a duel. Song Qingyan was a few years older than her. Back then he was not convinced of her strength and challenged her to a duel. Song Qingyan was a few years older than her. Back then he hadn't been convinced by her and had challenged her to a duel. Chang Wanzhou cast a cold glance at Song Qingyan and retracted his gaze. Song Qingyan felt a chill run down his spine. He looked back but didn't discover anything. Chu Liwei and the other two were talking in low voices. Their expressions were calm and they even laughed occasionally. It was as if they didn't care about what he had said. Song Qingyan sneered. You're right. This Chu Liwei is really arrogant. When we reach the great desolate swamp, she'll be in trouble. Yang Qin lowered her head and didn't say anything. Liwei. Cheers of surprise could be heard. Chu Liwei looked over, her face full of smiles. A familiar face appeared in front of her. It was Mu Hongyu. She had originally come with the people from Dragon Tooth Mountain. However, when she saw Chu Liwei from afar, she couldn't help but rush over first. I knew you'd go as well. Are only the three of you from the Void Rush Pavilion going? Mu Hongyu had been busy cultivating with Jian Shai over the past few days. She didn't know anything about what was going on outside. Chu Liwei nodded. My senior brothers and sisters couldn't find the time, so they sent the three of us. A sneer could be heard from the side. Song Qingyan had a mocking look on his face as he said to the person beside him, Hey, you make it sound so nice. Who doesn't know that the Void Rush Pavilion is like this because they can't send anyone? The Void Rush Pavilion, which had less than 100 people, was actually on par with them as one of the four major sects. The smile on Chu Liu's face was slightly faint. However, Mu Hongyu had already sneered. Isn't it enough to send the three of them? I remember that many of you here have participated in the sect conference, right? Could it be that any of you won against Liu? Of course, not everyone could fight against Chu Liwei at the sect conference. However, who didn't know that she had defeated a rank 6 warrior? Among the people present, there were many who were not even rank 6 martial artists. Chu Liwei was indeed strong. There was no doubt about that. The surroundings suddenly became much quieter. Song Qingyan frowned. Who are you? How dare you be so presumptuous in front of me? Yang Xian said in a low voice. Senior brother Qingyan, she is that virtual essence body. Song Qingyan narrowed his eyes. The slave that Jian Fengqi spent 6 million white crystal coins to buy? As soon as he said that, everyone looked over with subtle expressions. Everyone could hear the provocation in this sentence. In the Tianling dynasty, slaves were of a lower status. However, Mu Hongyu had a virtual essence body, so most people were more envious and jealous of her. With such a body, would she still be afraid of being looked down upon when she became an expert in the future? However, if this identity was brought out alone, it was obvious that she was deliberately trying to embarrass people. Chu Liyue's face turned cold. A handsome young man walked forward and said calmly, "Hongyu is the last disciple of our mountain master. Hongyu is our mountain chieftain's last disciple. May I know if young Lord Song has any questions?" Song Qingyan's expression changed slightly. The people around him were also surprised. Mu Hongyu was Jian Shai's last disciple? If that was the case, then her identity was extraordinary. After so many years, Jian Shai had only accepted 3 disciples. Mu Hongyu was the 4th. Jian Shai didn't seem to care about her identity as a slave. Since he was willing to do this, it was enough to show how much he valued Mu Hongyu. In other words, he was Mu Hongyu's backer. Although Song Qingyan had always been arrogant and looked down on people, he wasn't stupid. He knew who he could offend and who he couldn't. Jian Shai of the Dragon Tooth Mountain was an extremely protective person. Even his father didn't dare to go against Jian Shai, let alone him. He snorted coldly, waved his sleeves and turned his face away. The young man walked in front of Chu Liyue. He smiled warmly and politely. "Miss Chu, I am Zhu Hong. Before we came, the mountain master and the young master told us to take good care of you. Would you be willing to come with us on this trip to the Great Desolate Swamp?" Jian Shai and Jian Fengqi? Chu Liyue froze for a moment. When she saw the sincere expressions on the faces of Zhu Hong and the others, her eyebrows curved. "All right. Thank you in advance." Mobile users, please browse and read. For a better reading experience, please visit the website. Chapter 687. She had used a special method to forcefully store the force in her body. Although it was quite a lot, it couldn't withstand such a long period of consumption. One had to know that she couldn't absorb the energy of heaven and earth and convert it into her own force. Who knew how long it would take for her to come out of the mystic forest? Just as Shengguan was hesitating, dark clouds suddenly gathered in the distant sky. The originally clear sky quickly darkened. From afar, it looked like a drop of thick ink had suddenly spread out on a blue painting. An earth-shattering roar suddenly resounded through the forest. It made one's mind tremble. "What's that?" Shengguan faintly sensed a dangerous aura and asked. Mu Qinghe took a look and said, "That should be a high-level fiend about to break through. To be able to cause such a phenomenon, could it be a 9th-grade fiend? Although a normal high-level fiend's breakthrough would cause quite a commotion, it definitely wouldn't be to this extent." The dark clouds in the sky quickly gathered and expanded, beginning to cover the vast mystic forest. The last general has never seen such a situation before, but it should be a 9th-grade fiend. Jiang Yuqing, who was beside him, finally spoke. Shengguan's eyes lit up. The worry and uneasiness in her heart all dissipated, leaving only curiosity and desire. If that 9th-grade fiend could successfully break through, it would be a divine beast. By then, not only would she be able to obtain the divine beast's blood, but she would also be able to take the divine beast under her command. Once her Yuan Meridian recovered, she would be able to form an official contract. To be able to command a divine beast, just thinking about it made her excited. One had to know that in the entire Tianling dynasty, apart from the Taizu, no one had ever formed a contract with a divine beast. Even Shengguan back then had only formed a contract with a 9th-grade 9-colored heavenly pheasant. It was still a step away from becoming a divine beast. And this step might seem simple, but it was actually a huge gap. If she could form a contract with a divine beast, she would be able to easily crush Shengguan. Shengguan slowly clenched her fists in her sleeves. Her throat was a little dry, and the blood in her body seemed to be flowing faster. Along the way, she had heard too many comments about Shengguan. No, it should be said that ever since she occupied this position, she had been compared to Shengguan. Whether it was her talent and cultivation, the realm she had reached, or even her appearance and demeanor, everything was unavoidable. And she was almost completely defeated. Even though Shengguan had died in an undignified manner, it was still irreplaceable in many people's eyes. What about her? Not only did he have to try his best to cover up his physical condition every day, but he also had to deal with all kinds of things that happened in the Tianling dynasty. He also had to be under the spotlight of Shengguan. Shengguan was like this when he was alive. She was already dead, but her soul still lingered around. Shengguan had had enough. This made her extremely eager to quickly recover her Yuan Meridian and increase her strength. She wanted to prove to everyone that she was better than Shang Guanyu. Such an opportunity is hard to come by. This time, I will definitely obtain the divine beast's blood for my father. With that said, Shang Guanwan moved forward, heading straight for the direction where the dark clouds were gathering. Jiang Yuqing looked at the dark clouds in the sky. His expression froze for a moment before he followed Shang Guanwan. Mu Qinghe quickly led the way with his men. The group of people headed toward the mystic forest in a grandiose manner. After passing through the Gray Triangle, the group entered the mystic forest. At first glance, this forest looked no different from an ordinary forest. However, because Mu Qinghe had warned them of the dangers, everyone used their force to set up a barrier around themselves before entering the mystic forest. Chu Luiyue looked up at the lush forest. His eyes flickered slightly as he asked the legendary three-eyed eagle in his mind. Do you know what kind of demonic beast is breaking through in there? The legendary three-eyed eagle was a divine beast, so it should be able to sense this. It's quite far from here, and the other party seems to be hiding its aura on purpose. I can't tell what kind of demonic beast it is for now. The legendary three-eyed eagle's voice was much lower and colder. However, to be able to hide its aura so thoroughly, it shouldn't be an ordinary person. Chu Luiyue was also a little surprised. It seemed that there was really an extraordinary existence in this mystic forest. She hid the expression in her eyes. Like the others, she used her force to set up a barrier around herself and walked forward. In the forest, there were thick piles of fallen leaves. Stepping on them, they made a squeaking sound. A gentle breeze blew over, causing the leaves to rustle. Other than these sounds, the entire forest was quiet. Many people couldn't hide their curiosity. As they walked, they looked around. At a glance, this mystic forest seemed no different from an ordinary forest. However, thinking of Mu Qinghe's previous warning, everyone was still cautious, afraid that something would go wrong. After entering the lush forest, it was difficult to see the situation in the distance. However, the roars that came from time to time became clearer and clearer. This made Shang Guanwan feel a little relieved. They were indeed getting closer and closer. Why is it so quiet here? After walking for a distance, Jiang Yuqing was the first to sense that something was wrong and asked. Elder Qiushi stroked his beard and explained, probably because a 9th-grade magical beast is about to break through here, so the other magical beasts are temporarily hiding? Rumor has it that when a magical beast of this level breaks through, it will summon Tianlei. Only by enduring it can it be considered a success and become a real divine beast. Ordinary magical beasts naturally have to be obedient. Elder Duanmu Chun beside him also nodded in agreement. Elder Qiushi is right. This kind of scene has only appeared in rumors. I didn't expect to encounter such a thing as soon as we arrived at the Great Desolate Swamp. I have to say that it's a great blessing. In this world, there were countless people who wanted to see it but couldn't. Hearing this, Jiang Yuqing was relieved. I see. Elder Qiushi smiled and said, didn't Vice Admiral Mu also say that he has never seen such a scene? I think it's because Her Royal Highness the Third Princess disregarded the danger and came to find the medicine in person. That's why we just happened to make it in time. Shang Guanwan was also in a good mood. As long as I can help father, I can do anything. Besides, with everyone accompanying me, I have even less fear. Now, as long as we can find that magical beast, wait for it to break through to become a divine beast, then take its blood and bring it back to father. At this moment, the sky above everyone's head suddenly darkened. Many people looked up. What's going on? Why did the sky suddenly turn dark? Could it be that the dark clouds have gathered here? It can't be so fast, right? Suddenly, a cry of surprise came from the crowd. That tree is moving. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 688. A single stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. Countless pairs of eyes followed that person's hand and saw a tree that was as thick as a person moving slowly to the right of the group. Upon closer inspection, there seemed to be something moving under the thick layer of leaves. And it was this movement that caused the tree to move to the side. Poof! A tree root that was as thick as an arm suddenly emerged from the fallen leaves. It turned out that there were several roots of the tree under the pile of leaves. Seeing this strange scene, everyone was dumbfounded. Mu Qinghe glanced at it and explained with a straight face, it's just a small matter. This is one Yeshan. Its roots are buried very shallowly underground, and it can move on its own under special circumstances. Everyone was enlightened. I see, Dahuang Swamp is indeed Dahuang Swamp, even the trees are different. That gave me a fright just now. I thought something big was going to happen. Wait a minute, Didn't Lieutenant Mu just say that it would only move under special circumstances? So, is it doing this because the ninth grade fiend is about to break through? Other than the Black Cavalry, the disciples of the other sects were all discussing. Mu Hongyu was watching when she suddenly felt something and looked towards her arms. It was the golden mane bear cub that came out. It hugged Mu Hongyu's arm and shook its head uneasily, as if it was warning her about something. Song Song? What's wrong? Mu Hongyu asked curiously. The golden mane bear cub let out a low whimper and turned to look at the moving Wan Yeshan. It then started making a fuss in Mu Hongyu's arms again. Almost a year had passed and the golden mane bear cub had grown a lot. Mu Hongyu could barely hold it in her arms with its current size. If it kept moving around, Mu Hongyu wouldn't be able to handle it. She tried to comfort Song Song in her arms while looking at Chu Luiyue. She lowered her voice and asked worriedly, Luyu, do you feel that something is wrong? Song Song wouldn't act like this for no reason. Seems a little uneasy. Chu Luiyue followed the golden mane bear cub's gaze and frowned. She had seen Wan Yeshan escape before, so she wasn't shocked when she saw this. But the golden mane bear cub did look a little strange. Could it be because of the ninth grade fiend that was about to break through? Thinking of this, Chu Luiyue shouted in her heart. Dumpling. As soon as she said that, a red shadow appeared in front of her. Tuanzi blinked its round eyes and looked at the golden mane bear cub in Mu Hongyu's arms. It was deep in thought. Then it jumped into Chu Luiyue's arms. Then Chu Luiyue easily caught its tail. With a gentle tug, the claws that had just reached the coat were forced to let go. Don't learn good things. Chu of her of a hand of Tsong of her. Dumpling, which was hanging upside down in her arms, also swayed. We're both fiends, but why is there such a big difference? It just missed its master's embrace. The guy next to it was so big, but its master didn't even dislike it. On the other hand, it couldn't even touch a strand of its master's hair. Comparing beasts really makes beasts angry. Looking at Dumpling's watery eyes, Chu Luiyue was indifferent. She asked, do you feel that something is wrong? Dumpling was stunned. It hugged her wrist and turned around. Then, it obediently squatted on her hand and turned to look at Wan Yeshan, who was moving away. A dark light flashed in its eyes, but it quickly disappeared. Then it scratched its head and looked at Chu Luiyue. It shook its head hard. Nothing. Look. Wan Yeshan over there is moving too. A voice came from the crowd. And over there. No. It seems like all the trees here are moving. It was unknown who had shouted. The whole group was silent for a moment. Chu Luiyue looked around and her expression turned serious. As expected, all the Wan Yeshan around her were moving quietly. The key was that they were moving in different directions. At a glance, it was extremely chaotic. Chu Luiyue had seen such a situation before. But that time, only one area of Wan Yeshan moved, and they were all moving in the same direction to avoid danger. But now, Dumpling climbed onto her shoulder and obediently curled into a ball. It seemed to unintentionally glance at the golden mane bear cub. The golden mane bear cub seemed to have felt something. It gradually calmed down and leaned into Mu Hongyu's arms. Mu Hongyu saw that it had finally calmed down. She calmed it down and coaxed it for a while before finally letting it go back. She said uncertainly, it was probably shocked by the ninth grade fiend just now. Chu Luiyue knitted her brows slightly as an ominous feeling rose in her heart. Vice Admiral Mu, what's going on with these Wan Yeshan? When Shang Guanwan saw this, she panicked a little. Mu Qinghe's expression was serious. The last general has never encountered such a situation before. Shang Guanwan's expression was a little ugly. Her tone was a little sarcastic. Vice Admiral Mu, you've been in De Huang Swamp for 10 years and you've never seen this place? It seems like you don't know this place that well. Mu Qinghe's brows moved slightly. Her voice was a little cold. De Huang Swamp is vast. Other than this mystic forest, there are many other dangerous places. The last general led the army to quell the rebellion. Wherever the enemy is, we will fight. Naturally, it's impossible for us to stay in one place and not move. But the last general dares to say that no one in the Tianling dynasty is more familiar with this place than the last general. If the last general has never seen it, then it's even more impossible for the others to have seen it. Shang Guanwan was embarrassed by her words. Her face was red and white. Sensing the various gazes from the surrounding people, Shang Guanwan only felt embarrassed. This consort was just asking casually. Vice Admiral Mu, why do you have to be like this? She only said one sentence, but Mu Qinghe refuted her so much. And in front of everyone. He really didn't take her seriously. Jiang Yuqing frowned and looked at Shang Guanwan disapprovingly. They had to rely on Mu Qinghe for this trip. She actually questioned his ability at this time. Wasn't she just looking for trouble? Mu Qinghe had been fighting here for several years and had experienced life and death. To him, these words should be the most serious humiliation. That's enough, one. Vice Admiral Mu won't lie. Since he said that he hasn't seen it, it can only mean that this matter is indeed strange. It's very likely that there's a 9th grade magical beast trying to break through there. Don't be too calculative. The most important thing now is to find that 9th grade magical beast, isn't it? If we're late, won't all our efforts be in vain? Jiang Yuqing came out to smooth things over. At the mention of the 9th grade magical beast, Sheng Wanwan finally swallowed the anger in her heart and continued to walk forward. She had to hurry. After all, the force stored in her body was constantly being depleted. Your Highness, the situation is chaotic now. Please don't be rash. Mu Qinghe had just opened his mouth when an angry roar suddenly came from afar. Crack. The ground under everyone's feet instantly cracked. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 689. Protect Her Highness. Elder Qiushi reacted very quickly and shouted loudly. The people around them, especially the black cavalry, rushed over. But even though they were fast, the ground cracked even faster. Ravines quickly spread out. Everyone scattered and fled. Even so, some people still fell into the cracks in the ground. The whole team immediately fell into chaos. Many of the slower Wan Yeshan also couldn't escape the fate of falling into the cracks. Looking at the many broken or even disappearing Wan Yeshan, Chu Liwei finally understood why they fled in such a hurry just now. Crack. A muffled sound was heard. Chu Liwei looked down and saw a crack spreading rapidly from her feet. Dumpling suddenly jumped up from her shoulder and ran forward. Dumpling. Chu Liwei exclaimed. Then she saw Dumpling passing through those cracks and running toward the depths of the mystic forest. Come back. Dumpling paused, turned around and glanced at her. Then it went inside again. Chu Liwei's heart skipped a beat. Is this Dumpling calling me over? What does it want to do? Chu Liwei didn't have time to think. She gritted her teeth and quickly followed it. Liu, where are you going? Mu Hongyu only saw a blur before Chu Liwei disappeared on the spot. She looked confused as she followed Chu Liu's back view and shouted. A cold wind blew past her ears. It turned out that Chang Wanzhou had already followed behind her silently. Hey, Mu Hongyu wanted to call out to them, but she saw that the two of them had gradually disappeared into the distance. She glanced at Yi Ranran. What do we do now? Yi Ranran's eyes widened. Follow them, of course. Before she came, she told the pavilion master and master that she definitely wouldn't be a burden to Lu Yu and Wanzhou. Even if what lay ahead was unknown and dangerous, she still had to go. Mu Hongyu nodded firmly. Good. Let's go. After that, the two of them took a deep breath and followed him almost at the same time. In the blink of an eye, the four of them left one after another. At this moment, the forest was in a state of chaos. The ground was filled with crevices and everyone was trying their best to escape. For a moment, no one noticed that these people had disappeared. On the other hand, with the help of Elder Qiushi and Elder Duanmu, Sheng Wanwan was much more relaxed. After an unknown period of time, the chaotic situation finally calmed down. The ground was covered with gullies that were so deep that the bottom couldn't be seen. Some of them were even wide enough to swallow a person. It was a horrifying sight. In just a short while, countless trees were destroyed in the originally lush forest. Many people were injured because they couldn't dodge in time. Broken wood, broken leaves, dust, blood. At first glance, it was a complete mess. Sheng Wanwan took a deep breath. Her face was still filled with anger and panic. What exactly is going on? Could it be an earthquake? Mu Qinghe frowned. She glanced at the sky that was getting darker and darker. I'm afraid that's not it. If I'm not wrong, this should be caused by that 9th grade fiend. Jiang Yuqing followed Mu Qinghe's line of sight and looked over. What kind of fiend is it? It hasn't broken through to become a divine beast, but it has such powerful strength? It wasn't that he hadn't seen a 9th grade fiend before. Not to mention others, just Sheng Wanyu back then had a 9th grade 9-colored heavenly pheasant. But it didn't seem to be this powerful. With just a roar, it actually cracked the ground within a radius of several miles? Sheng Wanwan bit her lip. Her emotions were complicated. On one hand she was a little afraid, but on the other hand she also wanted to see what kind of fiend it was. It's already so powerful when it hasn't broken through. When it really becomes a divine beast, wouldn't it be even more unimaginable? Jiang Yuqing unintentionally moved his feet and suddenly felt that he seemed to have stepped on something strange. He looked down. What's this? After sweeping away the fallen leaves and dust, he then saw that he was actually stepping on a thumb-sized tree root? So it's Wan Yeshan's tree root. Jiang Yuqing heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. The commotion just now was too big, and many Wan Yeshan trees collapsed one after another. The tree roots were all exposed outside. He lifted his leg and wanted to kick that tree root away. But the moment his leg touched that tree root, he saw that the tree root suddenly elongated and directly wrapped around his leg. Jiang Yuqing knitted his brows and vaguely felt that something was amiss. He lifted his leg and wanted to break free, but he realized that the tree root was very tightly wrapped around him. Jiang Yuqing's face turned cold and he swung his knife. Choo! That tree root suddenly swung and threw Jiang Yuqing into a deep gully. Yuqing, eldest young master. When the crowd saw this scene, they all exclaimed in shock. Quite a few people rushed over and wanted to pull Jiang Yuqing. But due to the chaos just now, the crowd wasn't close to each other. In addition, things happened too suddenly, so they didn't even have time to do anything. Jiang Yuqing's figure disappeared into that gully. Vice Admiral Mu. What's going on? Questioned Shang Wanwan angrily. But before Mu Qinghe could say anything, he suddenly felt that something was amiss and looked down. His legs were actually tightly wrapped around by the tree root at some point in time. In actual fact, it wasn't just him. Almost everyone present encountered the same thing at the same time. Choo-choo. However, in the blink of an eye, the others were also thrown into different gullies. Even Shang Wanwan didn't have time to say anything before she was directly dragged down by the tree root beside her feet. Very quickly, everyone's figures disappeared into the forest. Then the gullies on the ground slowly closed up. As for the rolling leaf firs that had collapsed and torn apart, they quickly recovered to their original state. A gust of wind blew past and countless fallen leaves piled up. The mystic forest returned to its original state as if nothing had happened. Brr. That earth-shattering roar was heard again. Dark clouds rolled in the sky, and the entire forest was dark. A faint red mist began to spread out. Wherever the red mist drifted, the leaves quickly withered and then fell down. In just a short while, the originally lush foliage had all fallen off, leaving only the bare trees. But everything didn't stop. Red mist rose in spirals, and without a sound, the tree branches also withered. Needless to say, the tree trunks curled up and shrunk very badly. At one glance, under the dark sky, the withered trees in this forest actually looked like skeletons baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. It was eerie and terrifying. Dumpling's speed was extremely fast, and she kept running inside. Every time she ran a certain distance, she would turn back to look at Chu Luiyue to make sure that she was following her. Then she would continue to move forward. Chu Luiyue followed closely behind like this. Dumpling was fine just now. It was only when the ground began to crack that she suddenly became strange. The more she went in, the more Chu Luiyue was sure of her guess. Dumpling really wanted to take her somewhere. Looking at Dumpling's nimble figure, Chu Luiyue's heart was filled with doubts. How could Dumpling be so familiar with this mystic forest? Digression, it seemed that the update system had gone crazy again. She didn't know if these chapters could be displayed normally. Continue at 6 p.m. Mobile users who want to add more chapters, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from AI Network. Chapter 690. For a moment, Chu Luiyue even thought that Dumpling had been here before. However, this thought only flashed past her mind. The first time she saw Dumpling was in the forest outside country Yao Chen's capital. This was the Tianling dynasty's Dahuang swamp. The two places were thousands of miles apart, and there was also Heaven's Canopy. No matter how she thought about it, it was impossible. Chu Luiyue followed Dumpling and kept moving forward. Chang Wanzhou quickly caught up. After a while, Mu Hongyu and Yi Ranran also came over. Chu Luiyue was relieved to see that everyone was safe and sound. Dumpling left too suddenly just now, and she didn't have time to explain to them. Mu Hongyu followed Chu Luiyue and couldn't help but ask, "Luyu, where are we going now?" The mystic forest was eerily quiet. The deeper they went, the quieter it became. In addition, the golden mane bear cub's agitation made her feel uneasy. Chu Luiyue shook her head gently. Dumpling suddenly went in that direction. I don't know where it's going either. Mu Hongyu looked ahead and saw Dumpling waiting for them. It seemed like it didn't suddenly run away for no reason. Is Dumpling bringing us somewhere? Mu Hongyu asked softly. Chu Luiyue nodded. I think so. She didn't know what was going on either. Ran, who was following behind them, suddenly exclaimed. He couldn't hide the shock in his voice. Chu Luiyue and the rest heard the sound and immediately turned around. When they saw it, shock flashed across their faces. He saw that the forest behind them had been covered by a black cloud at some point in time, and it was incomparably gloomy. As for those originally lush trees, they had all withered at some point in time, leaving only bare and shriveled silhouettes. In the dark shadows, it was like a malicious spirit had crawled out from the ground. It was arrogant and unbridled. It was terrifying. What's going on? Mu Hongyu stuttered, her eyes full of shock. Who would have thought that the forest that was fine just now would become like this in the blink of an eye? Where are those people? Those people? Mu Hongyu's hand trembled as she pointed at the ghostly place. There seemed to be no one there. Chu Luiyue's pupils constricted as she stared intently. Vaguely, one could see a red mist drifting in the woods. Ran was the youngest. When she saw this scene, she was also frightened and couldn't help but ask, Is it because we walked too far so we can't see them? They should still be there, right? The rest of them didn't speak. There was an eerie silence around them. Ran's eyes reddened as tears welled up in her eyes. She subconsciously looked at Chu Luiyue as if she was asking for help. Luyu, what's going on? In fact, she also knew how unreliable her conjecture was. They were indeed a distance away, but there were thousands of people there. If they were still there, how could they not see them? Although the forest was dark, if one looked carefully, they could still see the outlines of the trees and leaves. It didn't make sense that so many people couldn't see them. The most terrifying thing was that those people had disappeared without a trace. If she hadn't inadvertently turned around to take a look, she probably wouldn't have known that such a big thing had happened. Chu Luiyue pulled her over and comforted her. Don't worry. That should be the miasma in the mystic forest. The miasma is extremely poisonous and can cause people to hallucinate. The miasma has already spread in this direction. Maybe what we're seeing now isn't the real scene. Ran felt a little relieved. Really? Chu Luiyue gave her a reassuring look and patiently persuaded her. Think about it. We're all fine. There are so many of them. How could anything happen to them? Not to mention the elders and the disciples of the sect, just the black cavalry alone is extremely strong. With Vice Admiral Mu leading them, they should be fine. Hearing this, Ran felt that it made sense and couldn't help but believe it more. Mu Hongyu looked at Chu Luiyue with a hint of worry in her eyes. Chu Luiyue shook his head calmly. No matter what, this place is very dangerous now. We have to leave as soon as possible. When it's safe, we'll think of a way to meet up with those people. Ran was very convinced by Chu Luiyue and quickly nodded in agreement. With Chu Luiyue around, she felt like she had a pillar of support. The only thing she could do now was to try her best not to cause trouble. Seeing that Chang Wanzhou and Mu Hongyu next to her seemed calmer than him, Ran felt guilty and blamed himself. I'll listen to Luyu. Chu Luiyue finally looked up. The countless withered trees in the shadows were like human-shaped skeletons, screaming and groaning in pain. She hid the emotions in her eyes and turned to continue chasing after Dumpling. Let's go. The few of them were extremely fast and the wind whistled in their ears. As Chu Luiyue ran forward quickly, she thought about everything that had just happened. The red fog was miasma, but it was not just miasma. She had been to the mystic forest before. Generally speaking, miasma would only appear in the forest in the evening. But now not only was the time wrong, but the color was also wrong. The real miasma was pale white, no different from ordinary smog and not this strange red color. Moreover, she had never seen those trees in such a state. If they had been there just now, Chu Luiyue looked up at Dumpling in front of her and frowned. Could it be that? Dumpling knew that something like this would happen, so she deliberately led them away? But how did Dumpling know? It even knew where to run to. Chu Luiyue had long known that Dumpling was different from ordinary blood ferrets, but only now did she realize that she seemed to have underestimated it. Perhaps it was because the scene just now was too impactful, but for the next period of time, the few of them remained silent. No one spoke and they just moved forward at full speed. Even if they did not turn back, they seemed to be able to feel the invisible chill approaching. After an unknown period of time, Dumpling stopped again. This time it did not continue to move forward. Chu Luiyue rushed to Dumpling's side in a spurt of energy. Chang Wanzhou and the others followed closely. After standing still, Chu Luiyue realized that there was a small stream flowing in front of Dumpling. It squatted on the shore obediently. Dumpling. Chu Luiyue called out to it. Dumpling raised its head and jumped onto her shoulder. Then it raised its paw and pointed at the stream. Chu Luiyue looked intently and her gaze froze. The stream was sparkling with colorful light. It was incomparably gorgeous. Digression: I had something to do at home in the afternoon, so I'm sorry. The fifth update is about 9 o'clock. To express my apology, I'll update tomorrow. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 691. On the whole, the stream was extremely clear. Only when one got closer and took a closer look could one see the fine rainbow-colored light in the stream. It was as if someone had ground up rainbow-colored crystals and scattered them into the stream. The light was brilliant and incomparably gorgeous. Compared to the scene just now, it was a completely different world. Chu Luiyue glanced sideways at Dumpling. Dumpling stretched out its paw and pointed forward, looking at her eagerly. "You want us to go up along the stream?" Chu Luiyue asked tentatively. Dumpling nodded crazily. Chu Luiyue turned her head and looked at the upstream of the stream. The stream was very narrow. Chu Luiyue could cross it by taking a step forward. It seemed to flow from the depths of the forest and headed in a direction. Chu Luiyue looked along the stream and narrowed her eyes. The source of the stream seemed to be roar. An earth-shattering roar sounded. It was deafening. Compared to the previous roars, this roar was clearly much clearer. In other words, they were closer to the 9th grade magical beast that was about to break through. And this roar also made Chu Luiyue certain that the stream was indeed flowing from the direction of the magical beast. In fact, the rainbow-colored light in the stream was also related to the magical beast. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment and then walked forward. Chang Wanzhou and the others immediately followed silently. It seemed that Chu Luiyue had unknowingly become the leader among them. It was as if with her around, all problems would be solved. There was always a kind of person in this world who could become the most dazzling and important existence no matter where they were. Chu Luiyue was such a person. Although this place was full of danger, they still followed her forward unconsciously. The few of them walked along the stream and gradually walked deeper into the forest. The deeper they went, the larger the stream became, and the colorful light in it became more and more intense. Gradually, the color of the stream began to change. As Chu Luiyue walked, he looked at the stream and thought to himself. The power contained in the stream was becoming more and more abundant. This made her even more curious about what was at the upper reaches of the stream. Along the way, the surroundings were still quiet. Listening carefully, there were only the creaking sounds of them walking through the forest, the rustling of the leaves, and the gurgling of the stream. Other than that, there was no other movement. Didn't Vice Admiral Mu say that there are many high-level magical beasts here? Why haven't we seen a single one after we've been here for so long? The fear in Yi Ranran's heart had gradually dissipated, and he couldn't help but ask curiously. Not to mention high-level magical beasts, I haven't even seen the shadow of a low-level magical beast. In fact, Chu Luiyue also found it strange. When he had come to the mystic forest in the past, there were indeed all kinds of magical beasts roaming around. Even in the evening and at night, when miasma filled the air, rustling sounds could be heard from time to time. It was the movement of magical beasts. But now this place was indeed a little too quiet. Even if it was really due to the pressure of a 9th grade magical beast that caused many magical beasts to hide, it didn't seem to be in such a state. To put it bluntly, it was dead silence. This place didn't have the slightest bit of vitality. Except for the stream. But in the stream, there was nothing else except for the increasingly rich colors. Maybe we'll find it after we walk a little more, Chu Luiyue said. When a high-level magical beast broke through, it would indeed produce a great amount of pressure, causing the low-level magical beasts in the vicinity to feel a fatal threat and retreat. But it was different when a 9th grade magical beast tried to break through to a divine beast. Even though the pressure was terrifying, the bloodline aura of a divine beast had a natural attraction to other magical beasts. The concept of hierarchy engraved in their bones made them full of reverence and admiration for divine beasts. This would drive them to endure the shocking pressure and go to worship the divine beast. That 9th grade magical beast had caused such a big commotion. Logically speaking, many magical beasts should have gone there. Yi Ranran nodded seriously. After a while, Chu Luiyue felt that the surrounding space seemed to have become sticky. Every step he took consumed more energy than before. It was as if there was an incomparably heavy mountain pressing down on her body, making it almost impossible to breathe. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. This should be caused by the pressure of the 9th grade magical beast. After walking for a while like this, Chu Luiyue's back was already wet with sweat. She took a deep breath and finally stopped. Let's rest for a while. Mu Hongyu and Yi Ranran hurriedly found a place to sit down and rest as if they had been granted amnesty. Chu Luiyue also sat cross-legged beside them. Chang Wanzhou stood beside her, standing straight. Chu Luiyue waved at him. "Little Zhou, sit down and rest too." From this angle she could see his slightly pale lips. It was obvious that this journey was not easy for him either. Chang Wanzhou's voice was as cold as ever. "I'll just stand." In case of any danger, standing was more convenient than sitting. He used to do this when he followed that person. Chu Luiyue did not know whether to laugh or cry. Of course she knew what Chang Wanzhou was thinking. "Little Zhou, don't worry too much. This area should already be the territory of that 9th grade magical beast. Except for itself, anyone else who comes here will be the same as us. There won't be too much danger. Besides, you should rest for a while." Chang Wanzhou was very stubborn. He shook his head and pursed his thin lips tightly. His forehead was full of sweat, flowing down his exquisite jade-like face, along his neck and finally into his gray linen clothes. At this moment he was obviously not feeling well. Chu Luiyue sighed softly and said, "Little Zhou, in fact, a month's time has already passed. You are no longer my follower, so you don't have to do this anymore." Chang Wanzhou suddenly trembled and looked at her, a trace of panic flashing in his eyes. "You don't want me anymore?" Chu Luiyue was confused. What is this about?" "No, don't misunderstand. I just think that the contract between us has ended, so you don't have to ask yourself to be my follower anymore. In fact, you are now my junior brother, aren't you?" Chu Luiyue said this, the corners of her mouth raised slightly, and there seemed to be bright stars in her eyes. Chang Wanzhou breathed a sigh of relief. "No need." After that, as if afraid that Chu Luiyue would misunderstand, he said again, "I think it's good this way." He was used to this kind of life and did not want to make any changes. Seeing that he was so stubborn, Chu Luiyue knew that it was useless to persuade him, so she simply gave up. Anyway, this child always had a bunch of strange persistence. It was not bad to treat him as a junior brother and follow him like this. While Chu Luiyue was thinking, she suddenly heard the sound of something breaking through the air. A gust of cold air came towards her neck. Her heart suddenly jumped. Danger. Digression. Tomorrow at 12 o'clock, mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 692. Crack. Chang Wanzhou stepped to the side, stood in front of Chu Luiyue and swung his sword. Crack. The sound of something breaking could be heard. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat, and she turned her head to look. There was no one in the forest in the distance. Beside her feet was a wooden arrow that had been broken into 2 pieces. The wooden arrow was made of a tree branch and it was only as thick as a thumb. The workmanship was very simple, and only the sharp arrowhead had a sharp aura. However, it was this small wooden arrow that made Chu Luiyue feel an extreme sense of danger the moment it rushed over. It was clear that the other party was very powerful. Chu Luiyue looked up again and looked around. However, she still didn't see anyone around. What's going on? Did someone sneak attack us? Mu Hongyu and Yi Ranran hurriedly walked over when they heard the commotion. Both of them looked nervous. Chu Luiyue picked up the broken wooden arrow and looked around carefully. It seemed that the wooden arrow was newly made. The other party's arrow was more of a test. Chu Luiyue's gaze shifted slightly, and finally landed in a certain direction. What kind of skill is this to attack someone secretly? Why don't you come out and meet me? The wind blew the leaves, rustling them. Other than that, no one else responded. Chu Luiyue waited for a while, but there was still no response from the other party. She exerted a little force in her palm, and a ball of red flames shot out. The wooden arrow quickly burned in her hand, and finally turned into a handful of ashes and was completely annihilated. She knew that the other party could see it, and that was her warning. "If you don't want to come out, then it's best that we stay out of each other's business," Chu Luiyue said coldly. With that, she turned around and continued to walk upstream. Chang Wanzhou followed with his sword. Yi Ranran quickened his pace and couldn't help but ask, "Luyu, the other party sneaked an attack. Are we just going to let this go?" Chu Luiyue's lips twitched imperceptibly. Under normal circumstances, she naturally wouldn't let it go so easily. But now, on one hand, the other party was probing, and on the other hand, it was more important to find that 9th grade magical beast as soon as possible. If he continued to tangle with the other party, who knew how much time he would have to waste? Let's wait until they dare to come out. Them? Not only Yi Ranran but even Mu Hongyu was shocked. Could it be that there was more than one person? Chu Luiyue gently nodded and did not explain further. In fact, she had indeed sensed the auras of the two people just now. Although it was vague, he could still feel it. Why are there still people here? Mu Hongyu muttered softly. When they looked back, the forest was already. She thought that there were only the four of them here. Chu Liyue pondered for a moment. She had a vague guess in her mind. The person who ambushed her was probably the person in charge of protecting the 9th-grade magical beast. But such a guess was too absurd. Not to mention how powerful a 9th-grade magical beast was. Even if it was facing a breakthrough and was in danger of being vulnerable, there might not be any magical beast willing to let a human protect it. Under normal circumstances, high-level magical beasts would be somewhat hostile and suspicious of humans. They didn't trust humans, so why would they entrust such an important task to them? Therefore, after this thought surfaced, Chu Liyue quickly suppressed it. The more likely guess was that the two of them were also here for the 9th-grade magical beast. Chu Liyue suppressed her thoughts and continued forward. The color in the stream had become more and more intense. Clusters of colors gathered together, and the stream was resplendent. An extremely faint fragrance wafted out. Mu Hongyu wrinkled her nose. Hey, do you guys smell anything? It seems to be the fragrance in the stream. Yi Ranran also took 2 deep breaths and was a little surprised. It seems to be there. But this smell doesn't seem to be the smell of medicinal herbs. She had been cultivating with Elder Xiai and had seen countless medicinal herbs, so she could tell what it was with just a sniff. Although the fragrance was faint, it was indeed something she had never smelled before. Liu, what do you think? Yi Ranran looked at Chu Liyue with some uncertainty. After seeing Chu Liyue's refining skills, Yi Ranran knew that Chu Liyue's refining skills were definitely above hers. Therefore he believed her even more now. However, Chu Liyue seemed to be in a daze. She looked absent-minded and didn't say anything. Yi Ranran called out to her curiously. Liu? Chu Liyue suddenly came back to her senses. Liu, what's wrong with you? What are you thinking about? It's nothing. Chu Liyue shook her head. I just feel that this smell is a little familiar. The few of them looked over curiously. Mu Hongyu's almond-shaped eyes lit up. Liu, so you've smelled this before? What exactly is it? Chu Liyue shook her head hesitantly. I'm not sure, she had thought for a long time just now, but she couldn't remember what the smell was. She didn't know why she felt that the fragrance was familiar. She didn't know where this subtle feeling came from. Mu Hongyu looked a little disappointed at first, but she quickly pulled herself together. Since you feel that it's familiar, you must have seen it before. It's just that you can't remember it now. Maybe you'll remember it if you walk further in. Chu Liyue nodded. They continued to walk forward. The deeper they went, the heavier the pressure became, so they slowed down. Every once in a while they had to stop and rest for a while. However, the person who sneaked up on them didn't appear again. On the other side, after Jiang Yuqing fell into the gully, he felt his body falling continuously. At first, the gully was a little narrow. His body kept rubbing against the sharp stone walls, leaving many wounds. He circulated the force in his body, wanting to escape this place. However, he was shocked to find that his strength was being suppressed by an inexplicable force. In the darkness, he couldn't see anything and he couldn't break free. He could only let his body continue to fall. Fortunately, the deeper he went, the more spacious his surroundings became. Gradually, he stopped bumping into the stone wall. However, this didn't calm Jiang Yuqing down. Instead, it made him more nervous. Who would have thought that there would be such a strange and spacious space under the mystic forest? Clearly, there was something wrong with everything here. Mu Qinghe. He called out the names of a few people, but no one responded. In the spacious space, only his own voice was echoing. Puff. In this tense state, Jiang Yuqing finally landed on the ground. No, to be precise, this wasn't a very thick ground. It seemed to be. Jiang Yuqing took out a water pearl. A faint glow shone in all directions. He finally saw his surroundings clearly. With one look, he immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. At this moment, he was actually in a black swamp. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 693. As far as the eye could see, the black, sticky swamp was almost endless. The stench of decay filled the air. It was nauseating and almost suffocating. What is this place? Jiang Yuqing was shocked. At the same time, he felt extremely disgusted. He wished he could leave this place immediately. Almost subconsciously, he raised his head to take a look. It was dark and there was not a trace of light. Jiang Yuqing's heart harshly sank. Is this? The entrance is sealed. Otherwise there shouldn't be no light at all. He quickly looked around and called out a few people's names. Still no one answered. Am I the only one who fell down? Jiang Yuqing frowned. What he didn't know was that after him, Shangguanwan, Mu Qinghe, and the others were also dragged down. However, they all fell into different gullies, so they naturally weren't with him. At this moment, their situation wasn't much better than Jiang Yuqing's. However, Jiang Yuqing didn't know any of this. He really couldn't stand the environment of this place, so he could only choose a random direction and plan to get out first. However, just as he lifted his foot, he couldn't lift it. An ominous premonition surged in his heart, and he slowly lowered his head to look. His 2 feet had already sunk into the swamp. Unbeknownst to him, it had already reached his ankles without him noticing. Jiang Yuqing's heart tightened and he immediately raised his qi. However, there seemed to be something under the swamp that was holding him tightly, and he couldn't break free. After repeatedly trying various methods, not only did Jiang Yuqing not come out, but he sank even deeper. The swamp was already up to his calves. He couldn't go on like this. Jiang Yuqing's mind raced, and he finally took out an icicle the size of a thumb. He poured his force into it, and a cold chill immediately spread out from it. His hands were covered with a thin layer of frost. Then the chill spread out in all directions. After a while, the swamp around him began to freeze. Jiang Yuqing held on to the layer of hard ice above him and finally pulled himself out of the swamp. A strong stench assailed his nostrils. His feet and even his calves were covered in a thick layer of black mud. One of the boots had fallen into the mud and was unable to be brought out. Jiang Yuqing sat paralyzed on the ice. Suppressing his nausea, he threw away his other boot. In his memory, he had never been in such a sorry state. After cleaning up the dirt on his body, Jiang Yuqing finally got up. In all directions there was only endless darkness. He furrowed his brows. Mu Qinghe had never mentioned that there was such a place in the mystic forest. Just as he was hesitating, a strange sound suddenly came from afar. In this quiet place where even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard, even the slightest movement would be infinitely amplified. Jiang Yuqing was in a state of high tension. When he heard this voice, his heart trembled. He held his breath and walked in the direction of the voice. What he did not see was that after he left, a hand reached out from the swamp behind him. The eerie white bones of a skeleton waved at his back, and then fell silent again. The swamp surged silently. It seemed that something was moving quietly. Chu Luiyue and the others walked for about an hour. The trees around them gradually became sparse, but they were all very thick and looked as if they had been growing for 100 years. An incomparably gorgeous colorful barrier appeared in front of them. The terrifyingly powerful pressure was coming from above. Chu Luiyue stared at the barrier and said in a deep voice, "It seems that we can't go any further." Plop. Ran panted heavily and sat on the ground. "I'm so tired. What kind of magical beast is this? Its pressure is so strong." She was the weakest among them, but she didn't complain at all along the way and insisted on keeping up with them. After saying that, she did not forget to feed herself a pill to replenish her strength. Then she gave one to each of the remaining 3 people. Although Chu Luiyue also brought her own pill, she accepted it with a smile when she saw Ran enthusiastically handing it over. Chang Wanzhou saw that she accepted it and did not refuse. Chu Luiyue swallowed the pill and adjusted her breathing as she turned around to look at the barrier. This barrier was like a huge colorful semicircular glass cover that enveloped this area. That stream was originally just a very ordinary stream in the forest. But because it happened to be crossed by this barrier, countless colorful streams of light flowed down and fell into the stream. Gradually it became what they saw. The place where the stream and the barrier were connected had even condensed into a solid state. From afar, it looked like a huge colorful crystal was pressing down on it. Countless colors melted into the stream, and it was incomparably magnificent. Above the barrier, a vast and terrifying pressure was exuding, indicating that it was a supreme being. Even just standing in front of it, Chu Luiyue faintly felt a little breathless. She had been to the mystic forest before, but she had never seen such a scene. When did it appear, or did it exist in the first place? And what exactly was inside this barrier? Because the barrier was too dazzling, they couldn't see what was going on inside. As for the fragrance, it was also coming from the barrier. That sense of familiarity was getting stronger. Chu Luiyue almost couldn't control herself as she walked forward. Chang Wanzhou frowned and immediately stopped her. A hint of worry flashed across the young man's beautiful face. "It's dangerous." Chu Luiyue looked into his clear eyes and smiled. "Don't worry, I know what to do." Chang Wanzhou looked back at the barrier and said, "It's fine. I'll do it." With that, he raised his foot and walked forward. He held the cloud sky copper sword tightly with both hands. It was as if he would immediately swing his sword if anything happened. Chu Luiyue pulled him back. Seeing Chang Wanzhou's stubborn face, Chu Luiyue could only sigh. How about this? I'll be in front and you'll be behind. If anything really happens, you'll be by my side. It won't be too late to make a move. Chang Wanzhou pondered for a moment before finally agreeing. Chu Luiyue took 2 steps forward and stood in front of him. At this moment, she was only 1 step away from the rainbow-colored barrier. As long as she stretched out her hand, she would be able to easily reach it. Chu Luiyue took a deep breath and quickly circulated the force in her body. At the same time, she gripped the glass barrier tightly with one hand and prepared herself. Actually, what she did not tell Chang Wanzhou and the others was, she did not feel that this barrier was dangerous. For some reason, she felt that this barrier did not seem to be a threat to her, even though the power on it was enough to destroy her. Chu Luiyue slowly stretched out her hand. Tuanzi squatted on her shoulder and colorful lights were reflected in her eyes. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 694. A cold aura suddenly came from the side. Chu Luiyue's eyes were slightly cold. Chang Wanzhou had already raised his sword. Buzz. Right in front of him, Chu Luiyue could even hear the sound of the arrow's tail vibrating violently. Chang Wanzhou's hair on his forehead was swayed by the tyrannical aura. A trace of piercing pain came from between his eyebrows. The cloud sky copper sword was already in front of him. As long as that arrow moved an inch forward, it would be cut down by him. However, at this moment, that arrow actually stopped 3 steps away from the 2 of them. Chu Luiyue could even see the ripples in the void. It was like a stone thrown into a lake, causing countless ripples. This was a long black arrow made of fine iron. It was made of excellent quality, with smooth lines and incomparably sharp. Compared to the crude wooden arrow just now, it was completely different. This attack contained a true killing intent. Chu Luiyue looked towards the direction of that arrow and narrowed his eyes. Since things have come to this, you better come out. There's no point in hiding. As soon as he finished speaking, the forest fell silent. Chang Wanzhou was still holding his sword tightly and was extremely vigilant. Mu Hongyu and Yi Ranran's hearts were also raised as they looked over. A moment later, a tall and sturdy man walked out. He was born with thick eyebrows and big eyes. He was wearing coarse hemp clothes and had bronze-colored skin. Coupled with his strong muscles, he was very tall and strong. Chu Luiyue was slightly shocked. She actually didn't see any figure of such a strong and sturdy man just now, nor did she hear any sound of movement. If she didn't feel the aura on his body, she was afraid that she wouldn't know that such a person had always been following them. It was enough to see the strength of this man. Chu Luiyue had just broken through to the 5th stage and was unable to pry into the other party's true realm. But from the aura around him, he was at least at the middle stage of the 7th stage. It was even possible that he was at the peak of the 7th stage. He was holding a bow in his hand and carrying a quiver of arrows on his back. It was obvious that he was the one who had attacked. Strangely, there was a black hammer on his waist. The hammer was dark in color, and its bottom seemed to be engraved with silver patterns. However, Chu Luiyue couldn't see what it was. Mu Hongyu and Yi Ranran became even more nervous when they sensed the strength of the newcomer. This person. If they were to really fight, they might not be a match for him even if they joined forces. Chu Luiyue also noticed this. Therefore, she patted Chang Wanzhou's shoulder. Little boat, step back. Chang Wanzhou did not move, and the cloud sky copper sword emitted a chilling intent. His entire body was brimming with battle intent. It was as if they had already made up their minds to fight with their lives on the line. Chu Luiyue didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Xiao Zhou, let's not fight with him. If they fought, they would be the ones at a disadvantage. Why bother? Chu Luiyue had always been very sensible. If they could win, they would fight. If they couldn't, they would run. The key was that she didn't have the confidence to successfully escape from this man's hands with these few people. So, it wasn't a bad idea to sit down and have a chat. Chang Wanzhou finally took half a step back, but he was still on guard as he looked at the man opposite him with vigilance. That man didn't seem to mind as he laughed out loud. You're quite sensible. He had long seen that this young lady in red was the backbone of this group of people. Chu Luiyue also laughed. I'm Chu Luiyue. May I know your name? That man saw that Chu Luiyue was so straightforward and was forthright. Lei Laosi. Lei Laosi? This didn't seem like a name but more like a nickname. However, Chu Luiyue wouldn't delve into this matter. Lei Laosi raised his hand, and his fan-like palm was filled with a thick layer of calluses. His fingers moved slightly, and the black arrow that was suspended in front of Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou rapidly retreated. He grabbed the arrow and threw it back into the quiver. You guys look young and you're all from wealthy families, right? Why did you guys come here for no reason? Lei Laosi scoffed and hugged his arms as he leaned against a thick piece of wood at the side. This is not a fun place to be. Chu Luiyue could see that he actually didn't have any ill intentions towards them, so she felt slightly more at ease. If he really wanted to kill them, he wouldn't have waited until now. Chu Luiyue thought for a while and said, "Actually, I'm not going to lie. To be honest, this time we came with Her Highness the Third Princess." "Which third princess are you talking about?" Chu Luiyue was halfway through her sentence when she saw Lei Laosi's expression change, and a fierce glint flickered in his eyes. It seems like this Lei Laosi seems to know Shang Wanwan? Chu Luiyue hesitated for a while and still spoke. "Isn't there only one third princess in the Tianling dynasty?" Just as she said that, Lei Laosi's expression turned completely gloomy, and he directly drew out another arrow. He loaded the arrow and pulled the bow. The cold and sharp arrowhead pointed directly at Chu Luiyue. "So you guys are her people." Lei Laosi's face was filled with undisguised murderous intent. "Since that's the case, all of you deserve to die." The sound of the bow being fully pulled could be heard, and it made one's heart tighten. Sensing the danger, Chang Wanzhou raised his sword. A sparrow blue flame suddenly rose. Lei Laosi glanced from the corner of his eye, squinted his eyes and sneered. "Do you guys deserve to use such a sword?" As he spoke, he was about to release the arrow. Chu Luiyue immediately said, "We don't. We're not Shang Wanwan's people." Hearing that name, Lei Laosi's eyes twitched slightly. He sneered. "You just said that you followed her here. Why are you saying that you're not her people now? You're full of lies." Chu Luiyue lifted her hand and pressed Chang Wanzhou's wrist, forcefully pressing his sword down. Then, she stepped forward with a calm expression and said word by word, "We did indeed come here. It's true that we came with her, but that doesn't mean we're her people. In fact, she brought a total of thousands of people here this time." Lei Laosi was slightly shocked. "What? Why did she bring so many people here?" Chu Luiyue quickly explained the situation simply. "That's why so many of us came here this time. However, not long ago we got separated from them and came here. As for the others, we don't know where they are now." After hearing that, Lei Laosi's expression gradually calmed down. "You said that you guys are from Chongshu Pavilion?" Chu Luiyue nodded slightly and glanced at Mu Hongyu again. "She's from Dragon Teeth Mountain, but she's our friend." Dragon Teeth Mountain. Lei Laosi scoffed, but the murderous intent in his eyes had already dissipated. Chu Luiyue heaved a sigh of relief in her heart. It seemed like she guessed correctly. This Lei Laosi indeed didn't have any ill intentions toward Chongshu Pavilion and Dragon Teeth Mountain. "On account of the Chongshu Pavilion's pavilion master, I'll let you guys off this time. Leave quickly." Lei Laosi waved his hand impatiently. Chu Luiyue glanced at the colorful barrier beside her and didn't move. "We're already here, so how can we leave?" Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 695. Chu Luiyue didn't move, so the rest of the people naturally didn't move either. The scene was silent for a moment. Lei Laosi felt that something was amiss, and his thick brows knitted tightly. "What? Didn't you hear what I said just now?" Chu Luiyue smiled and said, "Brother Lei, you followed us. I'm sure you know that we came here because we want to see what exactly is in the upper reaches of the stream. We finally came here with much difficulty, but you're asking us to leave directly. Isn't this a little inappropriate?" Lei Laosi laughed as though he heard a joke. He looked at them as though he was looking at unreasonable children who didn't know what was good for them. He lifted his chin. "I know you want to enter this barrier, but why don't you take a look at where this is? Do you have the ability to enter? You just barged in like this. You're really a newborn calf that isn't afraid of a tiger. Aren't you afraid of dying here for no reason?" Chu Luiyue said very politely and sincerely, "Brother Lei, I'm very grateful for your advice. However, I've always been someone who cherishes my life very much. I will never do anything that could threaten my life. Since I did it, it proves that I have the confidence to escape unscathed." "Arrogant!" Lei Laosi shouted angrily. "You guys are still here for that mythical beast. In the end, aren't you still here to get that mythical beast's blood for Shang Wanwan? What for Her Majesty? It's all bullshit." His words were filled with disdain and hatred for Shang Wanwan. Chu Liyue's heart stirred slightly. Hearing this, Lei Laosi doesn't seem to have an ordinary enmity with Shangguan, and he even seems to know about Her Majesty. But looking at his appearance, he's clearly a savage living in the forest. Could it be that he was persecuted by Shangguan in the past, so he came to the mystic forest? Chu Liyue shook his head. Brother Lei, don't misunderstand. We really don't have any relationship with Shangguan, and it's even more impossible for us to do anything for her. The only people who are willing to do this for her are Jiang Yuqing and those people, but it definitely doesn't include us. Lei Laosi suddenly thought of something, and he asked with a gloomy expression, "What's wrong? Jiang Yuqing is here too?" This sentence of his seemed to be squeezed out from the gaps of his teeth. Every word was filled with bone-piercing hatred. Compared to how he treated Shangguan just now, it was actually comparable. Chu Liyue nodded. Ant's hearts as his eyes. Lei Laosi's SSS. Lei's. To tell you the truth, we only walked a short distance just now. However, when we turned around to look, we could no longer see their traces. Lei Laosi's. Teat. Lei Laosi only felt that there was movement in the forest outside just now, but he didn't think too much of it. He didn't expect. They actually dealt with Shangguan and Jiang Yuqing's group. The heavens really have eyes. This time, even if they don't die, it's definitely enough for them to suffer. Thinking of what they were going through right now, Lei Laosi's mood instantly improved, and a smile appeared at the corner of his eyes. Since you guys can avoid the miasma and come here, it proves that you guys are rather lucky. But this place isn't a place for you guys to stay. If you guys still don't want to leave, then I'll send you guys off personally. Treat it as a reward for sending me such good news. As he spoke, Lei Laosi took out the hammer at his waist. Just as he was about to make a move, he saw the girl opposite him smiling with curved eyes. Brother Lei, it's fine if we don't go in, but can you let us take a look here? After all, we haven't seen a 9th grade fiend breakthrough, so it's inevitable that we're curious. Look, it wasn't easy for us to get here. When she smiled, her eyes seemed to be sprinkled with a galaxy that was dazzling and resplendent. Lei Laosi suddenly froze. His appearance and demeanor really did look a little. Seeing that Lei Laosi's expression was stunned for a moment, Chu Liyue thought that he was persuaded, so she hurriedly continued, "We'll definitely stay here and stay here. We promise that we'll only stay here. We won't move or cause any trouble. After we're done looking, we'll leave immediately. How about that?" Looking at her eager expression, Lei Laosi's heart actually wavered a little. Then he looked in the direction behind Chu Liyue and the rest without batting an eyelid. Chu Liyue knew that he was looking at another person. Even though she didn't know who that person was or why that person didn't show himself, it should be someone with a similar status as Lei Laosi. Lei Laosi's glance was obviously discussing with that person. Chu Liyue's eyes flickered and she continued, "Since you're here, big brother Lei, are you still afraid that we'll cause any trouble? Besides, many things happened in Xiling City recently. Why don't we sit down and have a chat?" Lei Laosi scoffed coldly. "You're so young, but you have such a glib tongue. It's not that you can't stay here and watch, but all of you have to take 10 steps back. Without my permission, no one is allowed to move." He didn't know why, but when he looked at Chu Liyue, it seemed like he couldn't harden his heart. Somehow, there seemed to be an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Chu Liyue was delighted. "Thank you, big brother Lei." After saying that, she hurriedly winked at the few people and pulled them back. Tuanzi waved its claws reluctantly and looked at the colorful boundary with a longing look. Just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Chu Liyue sensed its restlessness, so she grabbed its tail and pressed it into her arms as she softly said, "Don't worry." She whispered, "Dumpling, listen to me." Tuanzi had no choice but to stay in her arms obediently, but her eyes kept drifting over there. After taking 10 steps back, Chu Liyue and the rest stood still. Lei Laosi looked at them and asked, "What happened in Xiling City? Tell me about it." Chu Liyue smiled in her heart and thought that he indeed wanted to know. She calculated for a while and said, "In a few months, Shangguan and Jiang Yuqing will be getting married." Lei Laosi immediately stood up straight, and the veins on his forehead popped out. His face flushed red and was filled with shock and anger. "How dare they roar?" A roar that shook the mountains and rivers suddenly came from that colorful barrier. Boom. Dark clouds rolled in the sky. A silver snake-like lightning quickly gathered in the clouds. A terrifying aura swept across the area. The forest howled. Chu Liyue trembled, and even her eardrums were about to burst. The rest weren't any better, and their faces all turned pale. Chu Liyue quickly looked up. Countless rainbow-colored streams of light were converging upward. Is this about to break through? Dumpling popped its head out from her arms, and its pair of black eyes gradually turned colorful. Digression. Update at noon. I'm going out in the afternoon, so the remaining 2 updates will have to be updated at night. It's about 8 or 9 p.m. Everyone please wait for a while. Mobile users please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.